microphones. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Yountville Town Council meeting for May 3rd, 2011. Quick reminder for some new folks. I see some new faces there tonight. We do have agenda items printed out against the wall to your left as you entered. And I also ask if you could please silence or turn off your cell phones. It's not so much a noise issue as it is a noise issue, but it's also an electronic issue for our microphones. So as a courtesy to those listening, if you would do that, please, it would be appreciated. With that, welcome, and could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hall?
Here.
Councilmember Moeller?
Here.
Councilmember Dornbecker?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chilton?
Here.
Mayor Dunbar?
Here. We'll move right on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance. At this time, we are going to recess the regularly scheduled town council meeting to the Yountville Housing Authority special meeting. Do we need to take a separate roll call for this?
No, Mayor. All members are present.
Thank you. So we will just quickly shift over to this other agenda. Calling that meeting to order. We will be skipping over the roll call. And this is still an opportunity for anyone in the audience, member of the public that would like to speak on any item that is not listed on this particular agenda. Yes, if you'd like to, you may come to the podium.
Thank you very much. My name is Carla Reif, R-E-Y-F-F, 2 F's and 2 Franks, and I'm here tonight to address the issue of the trash pickup. First of all, before I say anything else, I do want to compliment your staff. I've dealt in the past with the gardeners, the office staff, the recreational staff, the financial staff, the town manager, and I want to say on the record that I have never been treated any other way except politely, courteously, and with a lot of help. And I think that they deserve some commendation, and I wanted the opportunity to say that because they probably don't get it too often. Now, on to my testimony about the elimination of the trash pickup. As you know, we used to have the trash picked up 2 times a year, and then last couple of years it's gone down to once a year, and now my understanding is that we will probably have no trash pickup. And this is one of the few services which I believe really is for all the residents of Yountville as opposed to the businesses or the visitors. Now, there's probably a money problem involved in this. I think the grant was $10,000 at one time. I understand that there's still some money left, but I believe that you can find money to have this service done if you look around for it. And I'd like to make some suggestions. Number one is that you could look to the money, the funding that you're talking about going to the Chamber of Commerce. Basically, the Chamber of Commerce is here to promote business for the town and for tourists, and it's really not here, I don't believe, basically, because chambers are really here for business interests, it's for the people of Yountville. So perhaps some of the money can be taken from the allocation that you're going to talk about later to give to them. Maybe a small portion of that could be given for the trash pickup. The second way you might find some money is to address the spending, which I know is going to be coming up in the budget. But lately, or last a couple of weeks ago, there was this article in the Register about the $540 a month or $6,800 a year of a car allowance for staff. And I think in a town that the size is of 1.8 square miles, with a town-funded vehicle already in place, that's a little bit stiff for a car allowance. In a town such as this, you could probably get by with a bicycle, or you could rent a car anytime that you needed a car to perhaps go to Sacramento or to a meeting down in Marin or whatever else. Or you could pay actual mileage, which the going rate, I believe, is 50 or 60 cents a mile for those times that you do have to go out of town. So in conclusion, I think that we, the people of Yountville, seem to be getting the short shrift of things. Our water bills have gone up. We're burdened with an expensive town center, which probably is too large and too grand for this small community to maximize its usage for the people in Yountville. Our library hours have gone down, and we continue to lose town-serving businesses such as McGrath's because of town policies which favor business rather than the local community or the local people who live here. So please, I urge you at least to restore our trash pickup day for the locals, something that I think can easily be done by redirecting existing resources. Thank you. Any questions?
We're not really going to be able to
No,
discuss
I
the
know,
items.
but I'm not asking for discussion, just if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.
Yeah, thank you. What I would recommend is, because you've touched on several topics that we have discussed at great length here before, I would recommend that you get back in touch with town staff, either town manager or staff, and they will be able to answer, I think, fairly quickly, at least some of your questions.
I don't have any questions, I just have a request to restore the trash.
They'll provide some facts to you then. Thank you. Are there any other folks who would like to speak? Yes.
My name is Billy Hewitt at 9 Landy Way. I concur with Carla Reif. She has said pretty much what I am thinking, and there are a lot of, I think staff has probably had quite a few phone calls from people inquiring about the trash pickup, because there's no notice that there will not be one. I mean, there is no notice that there will be one. So by the very elimination means there's not going to be one, but people are still expecting it. So in addition to hoping that we can get it back in some way, maybe not this spring, but maybe in the fall, I think there should be some sort of public notice that there will be no trash pickup following the townwide garage sale. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, for a point of clarification, I'd like to make the community aware that the town has not historically funded the special cleanup. The special cleanup is funded through a grant from Upper Valley Waste Management that's actually if you will, your individual rates that you pay for Upper Valley Waste Management provide a set-aside, and the funding structure is actually provided through the fees paid, and then they set aside a certain amount of money to be used for special garbage pickups, and then they charge a set amount, or basically reimburse themselves. So just to let everybody know that the town has not historically paid for that. That's come out of the rate structure from Upper Valley Waste. And certainly, as I spoke with Carla and Billy, there may be some different options for us to look at doing a different type of cleanup, perhaps where we have centralized dumpsters. The Cadillac service that we have, where 3 different trucks come by and hand pick up everything left at the curb, is very expensive, and it may be time to look at a different method.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on anything not included in this Housing Authority agenda? Yes.
Good evening, members of the council, Mayor Dunbar. My name is Cal Valenti with the Sheriff's Office. I was hoping to take a moment of your time to introduce our volunteer, Donna. She'll be graciously volunteering her time to answer phones and receive members of the public at our door, which I think will make us more user-friendly when we're in and out of the office.
Great. I waved you forward just because there are folks watching on TV that wouldn't know what he was pointing at. So, but welcome to Yountville, and thank you for serving our community.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Cal. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll move back on to our Housing Authority agenda. Item 4, consent calendar items. Is there any discussion or a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With no opposition. On to item 5, reports. I'm assuming we have none. I don't see any listed. Public hearings, scheduled items. We'll move on to item 8, which would be adjournment back to our regularly scheduled town council meeting. Is there a motion for adjournment back to the regular meeting?
Move to adjourn to regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will take off our Housing Authority hats that are invisible and go back to, let's see, item 6, closed session report from a meeting April 19th. Is there a report?
No, Mr. Mayor, there is not.
Thank you. Now we will move on to the adoption of our regular council meeting agenda. Any questions? I see that we had a couple notifications about item clarification?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Under Agenda Item 9C, we have a correction to budget transfer number 2010-11-07, and the number should be 2010-11-09. And that is the only correction.
Very good. Any other concerns, or is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I so move to approve tonight's agenda with that one correction.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We will move on to another public comment period. And I know that there were a couple folks who did come in a little bit later, just to make sure if anyone has an item they would like to address the council that's not listed on tonight's agenda. If it's already on the agenda, we will be getting to that as we get to that item. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. If it is already scheduled, we need to wait until we're on that particular item, and then we'll have discussion. The public will have a chance to speak. But if it is not agendized at all, now would be the time for you to come up and address the council. And if there's a question of whether it's appropriate now, we're happy to hear you, and if we need to hold it off until later, we'll let you know. Okay? Looks like we don't have any additional public comment. We'll move on then to item 9, the consent calendar. And I understand we basically are pulling 2 of the 3 items, so we'll just take this one at a time. Consent calendar item 9A. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion to approve item 9A?
Mayor, just for, you need to pull the items first.
All right.
You need to identify which items on the consent calendar you're pulling.
All right, item 9B is being pulled at my request for a comment to staff, and item 9C is being pulled at Councilmember Hall's request for a question or statement.
So then you
Is
would
that
entertain
sufficient?
that is, and then you would entertain a motion for the remaining 2 items.
I am entertaining a motion for the first item.
I can-
Oh, A and D, I'm sorry, you're right. Items A and D.
I'll move to approve consent calendar items A and D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. A and D are covered. Let's go back to item 9B, and I just wanted to make a comment to Public Works Director Graham Wadsworth and our whole Public Works staff, and frankly, the entire town council, or the town staff, because we have been working for a number of years on our reclaimed water capabilities and our Title 22 certification. I just wanted to recognize the fact that we have reached as close to zero discharge as we may be able to get. And as we continue to move forward with this professional services agreement with Larry Walker, if that is approved tonight, I did want to just give credit for the great work that's been done by our Public Works staff to this point.
Thank you.
And with that, is there any other discussion about item 9B? Is there a motion on 9B?
I'll move to approve consent calendar item 9B.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
9B is passed and adopted. Item 9C, Councilmember Hall, you had a question or statement on 9C?
Well, Mayor and residents of the community, I just wanted to point out, as this obviously jumped out at me, being almost $1 million number with regards to a consent item on the consent item, that we at least should recognize not just significance of it, but also its relevance to the recent water rates that we passed here in the town of Yountville. And I want to make sure that the community is aware that we are making the investments, as we discussed, to ensure that we have the system and the support within the community. And we're going to be at action, if you've read through this, the action that we're going through hopefully will assist us in finding grants to fund a portion of the fees and the costs that we're going to incur in doing that. But I just want to make sure that we called it out and, again, make sure it was relevant to the community.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments about that, Councilmember Dornbecker?
I actually have a question about that, and that is that for the potential customers for the tertiary wastewater, Robert Mondavi, Silverado Vineyards, Herrick, and Behringer, are they going, as part of their contract, if they, do make a contract with us, they're going to pay for new pipelines to be put into place for their water?
Back up a little bit. Currently, the users that have agreements do pay into the system, pay for the system. So we anticipate that this would continue in the future agreement. But we have talked with some of the vineyard owners and potential users, and we don't want to enter an agreement, but we're also going to be looking at the capital project that we did with the Title 22 upgraded treatment plant. That was a large $1 million cost. This will be another large project, design, construction, up to $3 million. And then there's the cost of water, the recycled water. If there's essentially more value in the summer when there's not much water available, and there's less value in the spring and the fall when there's not much need for it. So supply and demand. So what we're looking at is a two-tiered or graduated rate system. So, but all those costs, like we did with the water and wastewater rates, we look at all the costs of the projects and operations, and then look at what we can charge the customers. So we're probably going to do another rate study on recycled water rates as well.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was wondering.
Any other questions of staff on this item? I'll ask Steve, is it appropriate to offer comment period for the public, or should we keep this discussion to the council?
At this point, you can.
All right. I'd like to just offer folks an opportunity to comment on this item 9C. If there is any comment on that issue. Seeing none, I'll move from the comment portion back to either further discussion by council or action by council.
Motion to approve consent calendar item 9C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is adopted. Thank you. And thank you for your comments. We will move now on to presentations. And the first presentation is the proclamation declaring May Mental Health Month. And we welcome Felix Badola, Mental Health Services Act Program Manager for Mental Health Division of the Napa County Health and Human Services, who is here with us this evening. And I'm going to come down to the podium and read a proclamation declaring the month of May Mental Health Month. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Whereas Mental Health Month provides an excellent public education opportunity to highlight the realities of mental illness in our community and to illustrate the importance of good mental health in the lives of all, especially given the challenging times we are living in today. And whereas the philosophy of wellness and recovery promotes the belief that individuals can learn to live with their mental illness, have fulfilling lives, and continue their journey with greater support and freedom to be who they are. And whereas the 4 stages of recovery are hope, empowerment, self-responsibility, and establishing a meaningful role in life. And whereas mental health is often given less consideration than physical health care, despite mental health being an integral component of overall well-being. And whereas an estimated 26.2% of Americans ages 18 and older, or about 1 in 4 adults, suffer from a mental health disorder like depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or anxiety disorders. And whereas the State Department of Mental Health estimates that 887 youth and 1,612 adults living at or below the poverty level in Napa County have a serious emotional disturbance or serious mental illness. And whereas stigma, cultural barriers, and lack of public awareness keep many mentally ill persons from seeking the treatment they need to stabilize and recover from their disorders. And whereas public health agencies have a mandate to provide a model of care which ensures easy access to services, compassionate and effective treatment for the mentally ill, while fostering public awareness, eradicating stigma, and helping individuals regain independence by finding the resources within themselves and the community to overcome the struggles of mental illness. And whereas the mission of the county's mental health division is to responsibly provide mental health services that promote individual strengths, inspire hope, and improve the quality of life for people within Napa County. Now, therefore, I, John F. Dunbar, Mayor of the Town of Yountville, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2011 as Mental Health Month in the Town of Yountville, with the goal of increasing public awareness, understanding, support, and recognition of the potential for individuals to experience recovery from their mental illness. Thank you again for being here tonight.
Thank you. And I want to thank the mayor and the town council for recognizing May as Mental Health Month. The Mental Health Division serves approximately 1,200 clients per year, and as part of Mental Health Month, we have a number of different activities planned, trainings, opportunities to find out more about the mental health needs of the community. And I invite everybody to visit the county website, countyofnapa.org, and look for the Mental Health Division. And there's a Mental Health Month calendar at our webpage.
So just make sure that folks at home heard that website. If you could.
countyofnapa.org. Thank you.
Great. Thanks again.
Thanks again.
You can applaud. Thank you very much.
I've got 2 kids waiting for me at home. So.
Okay. We'll move on now to our second presentation, which is to us. Presentation for proclamation declaring the week of May 1st through 7th, 2011 as Public Service Recognition Week. I won't stand up there and talk to myself here and to everyone else, but to all of you folks that serve our community each and every day, the folks that are here tonight and the folks that aren't here, make sure that they hear the message that we're sharing with you tonight. In honor of the millions of public employees at the federal, state, county, and city town levels. Whereas Americans are served every single day by public servants at the federal, state, county, and city and town levels, these unsung heroes do the work that keeps our nation working. Whereas public employees take not only jobs, but an oath to serve the public. Whereas many public servants, including military personnel, police officers, firefighters, Border Patrol officers, embassy employees, healthcare professionals, town staff performing emergency response services, and others risk their lives each day in service to the people of the United States and around the world. Whereas public servants include teachers, doctors, and scientists, train conductors and astronauts, nurses and building inspectors, public works maintenance workers, computer technicians and social workers, administrative assistants, accounting technicians, parks and recreation staff, and countless other occupations. Day in and day out, they provide the diverse services demanded by the American people of their government at all levels with efficiency and integrity. And whereas without these public servants at every level, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and elected officials. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, John F. Dunbar, Mayor of the Town of Yountville, do hereby announce and proclaim to all citizens that May 1st through the 7th, 2011, is Public Service Recognition Week. All citizens are encouraged to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels, including federal, state, county, and city and town, and especially to our town staff that delivers the highest quality of service that we receive here in the town of Yountville. So thank you on behalf of the town council, and I think I can speak for the members of the public. Thank you to all of our town staff here and the staff that from the county that serves us each and every day. Actually, if you could pass that to our fine town clerk. We will move on now to item 11, our first public hearing, 11A, Kelly's Fuel and Provisions. And before we get into that item, Vice Mayor, you have a comment?
Yeah, before we begin, I want to disclose that I am a co-owner of the Yountville Deli, which leases space on Washington Street in Yountville. After consultation with the town attorney and receiving written advice from the FPPC on April 7th, 2011, it seems reasonable to expect a direct impact on my leasehold interest. Actually a reasonably foreseeable material impact on my business entity. Right, town attorney? As a result of the action being taken tonight, I will therefore not participate in this item.
Thank you. So we will wait till the Vice Mayor steps down, and then we will proceed with the staff report. Okay, if we can, for 11A, staff report, please.
Good evening. This item is a use permit, design review, and master sign plan amendment for Kelly's Fuel and Provisions at Washington Square. And the first item before you is the use permit for the reestablishment of the gas station use and the introduction of the new convenience market at the location of the prior Exxon station. And they ceased operations at the end of 2009, and so that use is considered abandoned. The gas station portion of this use will involve the updating of the dispenser pumps so that they're 2 modern pumps, and they'll be able to accept debit cards and credit cards 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this will be in addition to the attendant service that will be available when the market is open. The convenience market is proposed for the hours between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m., and a variety of goods are proposed, including essential daily items as well as some more specialty items. These include household food items like milk and bread and ice cream, as well as prepackaged and pre-made restaurant food items, such as soups, sandwiches, salads, and cookies. Some of these would be heated on site, such as the sandwiches in a panini press or a hot dog in a microwave, but there is otherwise no food preparation on site. There will be an espresso and beverage station, and beer and wine will be available for sale, but it is for off-site consumption, and there will be no wine tasting or other on-site consumption of alcoholic beverages. Other items include newspapers and magazines, flowers, and other toiletry items typical of a convenience market. And the use conforms to the zoning district standards for the Old Town Commercial Zoning District. The parking conforms to the commercial retail standard, and the 4 stalls that are required for the business are located in the main parking lot for Washington Square. These were accounted for during the R&D kitchen entitlement on the site. There are, however, 2 extra or overflow stalls that will be located immediately adjacent to this use to the north of the convenience building structure. The uses themselves conform to zoning district standards. The gas station replaces a previously permitted but abandoned use at a site that's specifically designed for this purpose, and the convenience store is a category of retail use that is permitted in the Old Town Commercial Zone. The next item before you is design review, because there are exterior modifications to the building that are associated with the adaptive reuse of the building. And these primarily relate to the building openings. Moves so fast. These show the elevations, and some of the improvements relate to the east elevation over in this corner. The first being an enlarged glass storefront entry to replace the existing somewhat of a office entry on the south end of the building. And on the north end, reclaimed oak and glass bifold doors are proposed to replace the metal roll-up doors associated with the service space. And the applicant indicates that the new glass bifold doors will often be open to offer views and accessibility into this to the business, and the goal is really to offer a California aesthetic. Other openings include squaring off the openings and removing the thin brick veneer that you see in this photo. Gutters and downspouts will be replaced with copper fixtures that will be allowed to patina to a natural finish, and the underside of the fueling canopy will be replaced with a tongue and groove material instead of the plywood. All these design elements are consistent with the standards for the Old Town Commercial Zoning District. There's the use of natural materials that appears integral to the building construction. There's consistent use of materials and finishes throughout, and the introduction of glass opens up the facade and enhances the connection between the use and the street. The third item before you is the master sign plan amendment, because this is a project, a site that has multiple buildings and businesses, and the abandoned Exxon monument sign at the corner of Madison and Washington Streets will be removed, and proposed are 3 new business identification signs and 2 new fuel pricing signs. The first sign is a 26-inch diameter sign that will be suspended from the fueling station canopy and centered between the pumps. It will be facing Washington, and this is the only one of the new signs that is proposed to be lighted. It will be an inverted 8-watt fixture from the canopy, and it will be directed onto the sign. The second sign is a 20-inch diameter 2-sided projecting sign on the east elevation toward the northeast corner. One side will face toward Madison, and the other side will face south and inward on the site. Both of these will be constructed of reclaimed white oak and stained in a dark finish. The business name Kelly's Fuel and Provisions will be painted white with a yellow shadow or background, and will be finished with a 1/2-inch copper trim that will patina and will match the downspouts and other fixtures on the site. The new window-mounted sign will be an approximately 1 square foot sign affixed to the front entry, and it will be a yellow painted sign spelling Kelly's. The fuel pricing signs are 2 6-square-foot signs located on either end of the fueling canopy. And these signs are generally consistent with the master sign plan amendments for sign area, number of signs, sign design, sign lighting, and the special findings for projecting signs, all of which are detailed in greater detail in the staff report. And so staff is recommending approval of this project. I'm available to answer any questions, and the applicant is here to give a presentation.
Great, thank you very much for the report. Are there any questions of staff before we open the public hearing portion? Questions? I do have just 2 very quick questions for you, Sandra. The first one, I'll do the second one first. It relates to the design and how it relates to the overall R&D site that's going to be coming. I'm assuming that you have looked at some of those materials and styles, and that this would be a complement to the overall site? Or
It is a
do we know
complement to
that?
the overall site, but as noted in the staff report, each sign is taken on its own identity, different materials, so it isn't a completely cohesive look, but because they're separate buildings and they each have their own identity, we feel that it's consistent with the sign ordinance requirements.
Okay. Then the other question gets back to early part of your report about the hot food service. Do we have language that differentiates in terms, I know we have hot and cold and on-site and not an off-site food prep, but have we crafted any language that distinguishes the difference between heated food and hot served food? I worry that if we say a panini press or a microwave is different than somebody barbecuing, do we have the language that actually makes that distinction?
We don't have a strict restriction in that sense, but we would rely on environmental management's licensing of the site for simply a heating facility and rather than a food preparation facility.
Okay. So there's language not specific in our ordinance, but the county level that would distinguish that use?
I believe so,
Maybe.
yes.
Okay. We'll work our way through the rest of the item, and then we'll get back to that if I feel the need. Okay. No other questions of staff? So then I will go ahead and open the public hearing portion of this item, and I will invite the applicant to make a presentation at the start of that, and then we'll hear from anyone else that would like to comment. So please introduce yourself and try to stay close to that microphone so the folks at home can hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Tim Kelly. I live in Napa, California. Thanks to Sandra for a great presentation. I'll just try and fill it in terms of what we're trying to do and what we're excited about here. And thank you for your time, Town Council. What we're, and just to follow up, I can speak to sort of the conversation about the food prep as well. That helps clarify anything. So what we're really excited about with this is obviously getting a gas station in Yountville, which I think will please everyone, and the opportunity that presents for a market concept and that built-in traffic flow, and really a very unique stage to engage the community. I think we approach things from a restaurant design standpoint. That's sort of our approach, and you're familiar with the Rutherford Grill and how we really try and achieve a balance between really bringing locals in as well as tourists, and we're hoping to achieve that with the market on a smaller scale. We're hoping to have a lot of fun with it and really engage the community, to put it simply. So that's our approach with this. I'm happy to answer any questions. We did have some preliminary meetings with environmental health, and those preliminary meetings indicated we have the ability to get a food prep facility approval with our concept. So that's, what we anticipate going forward with. From a use permit, we're approaching this very minimally, and it has to do with sort of the way we're looking at running the business and really kind of keeping it as simple as possible, and that's why we're pursuing the food prep off-site at this time. So I hope that answers sort of your question regarding that. So
We'll talk about that.
okay.
Are there any questions of the applicant before we offer it up to the public? Councilmember Dornbecker.
Yes, you just brought one up for me then. If the food prep is going to be off-site, then is it going to be refrigerated in refrigerated cases and things inside until it's cooked, or heated in the panini?
Right now, we're looking at mostly food to go. So it would be wrapped sandwiches that would be prepared off-site, brought to the market, and sold in a reach-in cooler. So that's what we're looking at.
And the food that would be used for the panini sandwiches, is that also wrapped, but then they can open it up and you?
Yeah,
is that how
yeah,
that
most
works?
likely. That's
how-
an option that we would do. And then the hot dog concept, again, sort of would be something that we would basically kind of prepare the hot dogs to order and just set them up to go. Basically, we're really trying to embrace a grab and go kind of concept with this, where people they're invited to kind of come and intermingle, and really I think there'll be a social aspect to it. But really, speed I think will be something that we'll want to kind of accommodate and offer the customer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Councilmember Hall?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Do you have this business model, or have you seen this business model sort of echoed anywhere else? Or are you taking this business model from somewhere else? Have you done this before? Just trying to get a lay of the land of Kelly's is going to be in town, and we're thrilled for a gas station. I don't think anyone in this room would tell you that that's not a service we desire, but just interested in your background around this concept.
Well, my personal background's in architecture
Okay.
and art. Actually, I went to graduate school for art up in here in the Bay Area. So I've been designing and building restaurants, and sort of from the restaurant side of it, this is, I think it's going to have elements of the restaurant concept, but there are some things that we're learning about, that I'm tasked with learning about, for example, the gas business and things like that. We're fortunate to have built already a really strong team that is helping us kind of build this model. We've partnered with Royal Petroleum out of Santa Rosa, who's providing the gas. They've been great help in terms of their just sort of straightforward input and support on us learning about this. And then the food component we're pretty comfortable with, and the retail items are going to be things that we're going to be getting into and figuring out that kind of curated mix of convenience items as well as specialty items. I would say, I don't know of any direct references, but Dean and DeLuca is one that I think offers a very creative mix, but certainly we're not going to be going sort of that high end with this. I think we're looking at a real practical approach, and so somewhere between the Ranch Market and Dean and DeLuca, I guess, is sort of
It's a good spectrum. No, that's,
And it
I think it's
geographically
fair.
sits right in between. too,
And,
so.
yeah, and neither of those have gas elements to them. That brings me to my next question. Do you and your organization have an idea of what you believe the mix of the sales between the truly gas, the tourist, or maybe the local who's coming in just to fill up to get out of town or to go on versus the food? Have you guys put any thought to that? And just curious
We
how you
have
went
some
about that.
pro forma P&Ls that we've worked up. Basically, the gas station business, most of the business models are in the markets. You probably kind of know that. So we have some estimates on our fuel sales based on the previous operator who's been really helpful,
Right.
sharing information. So I don't have a percentage right off the top of my head, but it's mostly the market that we look at, sort of the business model kind of.
So the gas leads the food, or the food leads the gas? It's probably the former.
Yeah, well, definitely, there'll be more sales in I presume, the market than the fuel. Although, really, we've been hearing all kinds of stories about sort of markets that or gas stations that, in terms of quantity, started out small and have done really well. So I think, they can really feed off of each other, and we can really, kind of.
Some synergy.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Mueller, any questions of the applicant? Just a couple quick ones from me. One, could you touch on the gas delivery process and schedule that we could be expecting in terms of truck delivery of the fuel and the impacts on that intersection?
Sure. We actually had our first fuel delivery this morning, so I got to experience it firsthand. In terms of the type of truck that would be used, they were able to pull what they call a bobtail with a trailer, a truck and trailer, which are the larger ones. We do have two smaller tanks there, and so what I've been learning about that is the mix of when you request deliveries, we may get a smaller truck some days and a bigger truck with a trailer other days. He was able to navigate it really easily in terms of the delivery. He came at about 8 in the morning. That's, I think, sort of a reasonable time that we would probably have that delivery. And the frequency will depend on sales, but we're anticipating somewhere between 7 to 10 days, sort of needing some type of delivery. So.
And in terms of, you mentioned Royal Petroleum as your fuel source. They have no expectation of signage, illuminated signage, anything in terms of their brand recognition?
No,
it's only what you're proposing here?
We're purchasing unbranded gasoline, so it's so there won't be any kind of Royal Petroleum signage.
Okay. Those are my only questions for right now, and I'll just kind of warn staff that I'm going to be bringing that question back in terms of the gas delivery and staff's interpretation of the trucks and the intersection and how they work compared to the way it was. Because if we've changed delivery, fuel companies, they may have different sized trucks that we may not have known about. So I just want to kind of give you that heads up to, I'll be asking that question again. So, but thank you very much, and we'll now open up for the public to comment on this.
Great, thank you.
Any members of the public, please, actually, we'll start in the back and work our way forward. So please come on up and be sure to speak into the microphone so all can hear, please.
Hi, I'm Rose Solis. I came from one thing but heard something else. And I got to tell you, I've lived here all my life. I'm actually these folks' neighbors. I haven't had the pleasure to meet them yet. But I am so excited in what they just said. It kind of reminds me of old Yountville again. And it's nice to see that happening again. So I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. And to have a little market in there where, after 10 o'clock, Ranch Market closes, and yet my customers could run over there and grab a hot dog or grab something or a half gallon of milk, to go eat their desserts they might have gotten at the restaurant and get a half gallon. It's like right on, people, finally, So best of luck to them, and I hope you guys allow them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Others toward the back, and then we'll work toward the front. Anyone else behind Billy? No? We're going to jump to the front.
I'm up at the front already.
Please.
Billy Hewitt again at 9 Landy Way. I think it's great. We're going to have a gas station. I knew I had to go somewhere Monday, and I didn't have enough gas to get there, so I had to go to town Sunday to fill up. So it would be nice if we could fill up here. But I do have a question, a comment you made about the social aspect of a convenience market. What do you conceive as a social aspect of a service station and a convenience market?
Well, and we won't have a discussion back and forth, Billy. You
Okay.
address us, and then I can
I'll
invite him to
address
come
you,
back.
and then you can address him. Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious about what the social aspect would be. I don't want to miss out on it if it's something social. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other members of the public before I invite the applicant back up to address that one issue? No? Okay. If Mr. Kelly, you could address the one issue about the social aspect of, I'm assuming, the convenience store more, but potentially the gas pumps themselves.
I think just the idea of sharing a cup of coffee with your neighbor or saying hi to someone as they're filling up their tank, it's an intimate little space, and I think from a design approach, it's really intriguing to think about how people interact with their neighbors, and I just saw that as, or we saw that as sort of that concept of where how it plays into the master plan with the Bosque area and that center being more pedestrian friendly and active. We just saw it as really kind of this hub that kind of people could kind of come and go from and have a practical approach, but that sort of the byproduct would be a very genuine social interaction. So.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for addressing that comment. Any other members of the public? I don't see any moving forward. So I will close the public hearing portion of this item and bring it back for council discussion and potential action. Any original or initial comments anyone like to share before we get to individual feelings about the item? Do we have any additional questions that have come up from?
But I have a comment.
Okay. Before we get to that, if we could, I would like to just get back to staff. I still have the two questions now. One is related to our language about heated hot food. If we have any concern about the limited restaurant status of this, since we've just gone through clearly defining full service and limited service restaurants and how this may fall into that. And then the other question I have, as I warned you about, do we have any concern that this different fuel company creates a potential traffic hazard? If you know of either of those answers.
Let me try to address both of them. The first one regarding the language on the heating of food, we have included in the conditions that the food-related use is only for heating, and we feel pretty confident that the applicant understands that those are the limits of its approved use permit, that even if it has a kitchen for food preparation from environmental health, that they can expand their use to be doing those things and not be in violation of their permit. And they've expressed how they're satisfied with simply heating food on a panini and using a microwave, and that is very limited food service and really is by no means preparation. However, if you wanted, we could be more specific in that condition to make clear that use of a barbecue, which really would be considered cooking more than heating, is disallowed, or things in that nature. With regards to the fueling, we anticipate that it will function similar to the other station, and there's a natural flow of vehicles through this site based on the loop-type driveway and the way it intersects Washington Street. So I believe those will be the circulation will naturally work itself out. A truck won't turn left on Washington if it doesn't have the turning radius to do so, and so those, we're satisfied with those.
And to add, Mayor, Council, the change in the fueling service provider, there's fairly industry standard delivery trucks. I mean, the tankers that you see, and the tankers are sized based on the routes and delivery. So whether it's an independent company such as Royal, their vehicle fleet is going to be sized similarly to the others. So again, we don't see that as a concern, and certainly that's something that we'll monitor, and if there's an issue, we'll work on that, but not really a factor in terms of the prior company versus this one in terms of the types of tanker trucks that you would see on the delivery.
Very good. Thank you for the clarification. So now I will entertain discussion by council. Councilmember Dornbecker?
Question.
No, you had your chance. Okay.
That brings up a question to me, and that is, I didn't see anything in the staff report that talked about the transition from the old gas station to, I saw that the new pumps are installed. Was there an inspection of the underground tanks that hold the fuel and everything to make sure that everything was seismically and up to snuff and all that?
Those tanks have been replaced at the time of the old gas station, and there was a remediation program for a previous problem. The pumps are the only thing that are really being replaced. The tanks are going to be the original, or the replaced tanks that are up to the current code.
When were they replaced?
Approximately 11 years ago.
But there was some sort of inspection of, wasn't there?
Yeah, the new tanks meet the new standard, but there was a remediation program for the previous leaking underground storage tanks. They're still monitoring wells and all around that intersection.
Oh, okay.
That are separate from, a separate effort from and design from the tanks you're referring to.
Oh. Thank you.
So if I could, to clarify, because that just became more complicated, I think, than it needed to be. The tanks that are in place now are certified, passed inspection, they're fine.
Yes.
There had been previous problems at that gas station under different ownership with different tanks, and the potential impacts of that, where leaking into soil, groundwater, whatever, that's a separate issue from this set of tanks, this property owner, and this business. Is that true?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Does that help clarify?
Yes.
Right, it's just the pumps being replaced, not
Okay.
the tanks.
Okay.
But if I may, Mr. Mayor, state law requires and governs the appropriate installation and monitoring of gasoline tanks. So they wouldn't be able to use those tanks unless they passed all those rules and requirements. So I think, to answer the question, is the use of those tanks going to be safe to the town? There's nothing that would lead us to believe that they wouldn't be, and any remediation from past experiences are currently in place. So it's safe.
Okay. Well, that was my main concern. But my comment was that I'm delighted by the design and the louvered doors that will open, and I think we definitely need it. I'm delighted it'll be here, and I just want to make sure that it'll be safe for town. Otherwise, I like it.
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Mueller?
I'm very excited about this project. I'm in full support, and I'm just hoping we can get it started as soon as possible. I have no objections whatsoever.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall?
I'd like to say I'm excited as well. I think it's been a long time coming. I echo what others have experienced, where we have to drive to Napa to get gas. I know a lot of people have taken up this effort, and I look forward to it being completed soon.
Thank you very much. The one comment I will make to Mr. Kelly is that I would like to see language in the conditions that more clearly define on-site or maybe better, prohibit on-site cooking without special permit, that the conditions are, because it might be before you came to the community, it might not, but we've had great conversation at great length about full-service and limited-service restaurant use and how that impacts various other businesses you wouldn't typically call a restaurant. But to be fair to the language and the intent of our ordinances, I would like to just make sure there is some language in there that restricts cooking. I don't want to restrict heating of food, because I think it makes sense the way it's being portrayed, that isn't the same thing as having, service food to order. So with that, I would request that if a motion be made, that language be added. Is there a motion to be had on this item?
Motion to approve the Master Development Plan Amendment, including use permit and design review and master sign plan amendment for Kelly's Fuel and Provisions Gasoline Station and Convenience Market at Washington Square, located at 6795 Washington Street, with the proposed condition as voiced by Mayor Dunbar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With no opposition. Thank you, and thank you very much, and welcome to town. Vice Mayor Chilton is returning.
Wow.
Welcome back, Vice Mayor. We will move on to the next public hearing, which is item 11B. This relates to Tacos Garcia, approving a use permit amendment to extend the closing hour of operation to 9 p.m. from March through October.
No, there's nothing.
And before we get into this item, Vice Mayor has a statement.
I want to disclose that I am a co-owner of the Yountville Deli, which leases space on Washington Street in Yountville. After consultation with the town attorney and receiving written advice from the Fair Political Practices Commission on April 7, 2011, we have determined that this action before us tonight does not have a direct impact on my leasehold interest, and it does not have a reasonably foreseeable material impact on my business entity, and as a result, I will participate in the action before us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other statements before we proceed? Seeing none, staff report, please.
This item is a proposal for a use permit amendment to extend the closing hour of operation for Tacos Garcia until 9 p.m. They're currently permitted for business between the hours of 11 a.m. and 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday. And the applicant indicates the reason for the request is that customers have indicated that they would purchase food if the business were open, and he believes that he has a business opportunity this extra hour. And it is noted that it would be, the request is for a seasonal extra hour between the months of March and through October. The property, Ponchas, that it's located on is located within the Old Town Commercial Zoning District, and all uses are required to have an amendment, which is the reason this is before you. The potential impacts are impacts to the parking lot based on the extra hour of operation and impacts to the surrounding residents. And as noted in the staff report, the main hours of operations for Ponchas occur between 5 and 7, and then it slows down and picks up again around 10. This has been indicated by the property owner and the business owner, and it really has been observed by staff as well, although this is a casual observation that this is the case. And based on these characteristics, the extra hour of operation should not impact the shared parking of that lot and the two shared uses significantly. That is something that we are suggesting a monitoring period on of 30 days so that we can go back and look and see if there are significant impacts. The other relates to noise and odor issues on residents and surrounding businesses. And the staff report notes the town's noise ordinance and how the proposed hours are within the daytime noise standards, which are until 9 p.m., and those are actually extended until 10 p.m. from June 1st through September. So the proposal by the applicant is within this standard, and it is expected that the noise will be on the level of conversational noise and laughter that is on the lower decibel level and within the town's noise ordinance. The staff report does note that we have received some complaints or concerns by residents, two in the form of telephone calls and two in the form of letters, and there are residents that are concerned with this extra hour of service. The issue is before you for consideration and a decision, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you very much. Any questions of staff? Vice Mayor?
You just said complaints or letters. Are you saying you received opposition to this item or complaints about current operation?
The correspondence we received was related to the extended hour of service.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And I will be, when we get to open this public hearing portion, I will be commenting on the emails that have been received about the extended hours. No other questions of staff? Is the applicant here? I will go ahead and formally open the public hearing portion of this item and welcome the applicant to, if the applicant is here, to step forward and make a comment.
Hi, I'm Renee Solis, and I'm not the applicant or the owner, but I've been the guy, the middle guy, basically, and the owner is here. But anyway, I don't have really much to say, but what I did yesterday is I started the petition to see what kind of response we would get to extend the hours, and I don't know if you would want these, or if it even matters.
The town clerk can receive those.
And
could you maybe just paraphrase what you have there as she receives it into the record?
All I asked was, would you like to see Taco Garcia operate 1 hour longer? And the people I talked to today, everybody, I mean, this is 150 signatures in a day and a half. I mean, if I would have done it earlier, I'm sure I would have had a lot more. And got not just locals, but out-of-town people. Today I had a couple from London who are spending the night at Napa Valley Lodge, and they have friends in San Francisco who told them, you got to go try the taco truck. And these people are from London. Their name's on the very bottom here. I don't know what town it is, but I thought that was pretty funny that you come to Yountville, you know, where it's got the finest restaurants, and you're eating at the taco truck. I thought that was great. So, and as far as the hour, I mean, the noise, I don't really see a problem with the noise. And the bar is pretty slow between 7 and 10 o'clock usually. Pool League was on Tuesday nights. If you ever saw traffic there on a Tuesday night, there's a pool league from teams from Napa and Yountville, and we get a bigger crowd on that night, but it just ended. So other than that, I don't see really any other problems.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you for representing the applicant. Now I'd offer anyone else in the public that would like to speak, but actually before you come up to the microphone, I would like to recognize that, and these are also included in the staff report, we have 3 emails. First from Robin Johnson, who does not want to see the hours extended, citing potential for unruly behavior later into the evening and additional noise in the spring and summer months that negatively impacts their home in the neighborhood. Also from Charles and Jill Kanalakis, I hope that's close. They are stating their opposition to having a taco truck so close to the quiet residential area. Not opposed to the truck in Yountville, but they would like it to be moved to a different area. And then the third, two folks listed here are telephone calls. Nancy Caskey, a resident on Madison Street, she opposes the extension, main concern being the noise level. And Michael Stewart, property owner on Washington Street, not opposing the extension of the hour, but concerned about the impact the intensification of use would have on his adjacent property. Would also request that the truck be moved to a different location in town. So those are on the record and in your packets if you would like to read them verbatim. Any, the last statement, did I paraphrase incorrectly? To be fair to Mr. Stewart, he said in the future he hopes the taco truck will be moved from the south property line, from the south property line so that it does not abut his property. So thank you for that clarification. That would be a different part of town, not on the south property line. Here are the petitions. So any folks here tonight, would you like to speak on this item? If so, now would be the time. Please, just come on up. We'll start from the back again.
Of course, Rose Solis, and it's nice to see the north side coming alive again, I got to tell you guys. I deal with the kids all the time and stuff, and, some of them get off a little late, and they just want to get a taco, and by the time they get there, they go, we missed it by 5 minutes, if you guys can't keep them open. So that's why we're trying to do it. It's, we don't benefit anything by that taco truck, other than once in a while good food, as you could tell, but we don't benefit off it. So, an hour, if they're talking about the smell, well, obviously they never walked by Luca's or, any of the other restaurants that were there, because you would always smell garlic coming out of Gordon's, Luca. You smell it in the morning, in the afternoon. You get hungry just smelling the food. I mean, that's part of Yountville, is smelling that incredible food. I live next to the French Laundry. I smell it every day. And so it's wonderful, I'm telling you, I just can't imagine that would be a big issue. And then as far as like noise, the only noise we might get is little children out there that just love going to the taco truck. I mean, I've seen families over families. I've taken pictures over pictures of groups of families coming in from all over, that just love it. The kids are happy and stuff. They get their food and they go to the park. It's not like they even eat there. They go to the park, And sometimes now with summer picking up, people don't want to eat till 7 or 8 in the evening, or 8:30, They want those late time kind of, but they want to bring the kids, and they don't want to sit like in one of the real nice restaurants with 5 kids that are out of control. I don't blame them. Take them to the park, feed them, let them run around. By the time they get them home, 9:30, they're ready for bed, So that's all I'm saying. I hope you guys let him do it. It's just an hour, we're not asking for anything more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from members of the public on this item? Seeing no others, I will close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion by the council. Councilmember Muller, you seem to be leaning toward the microphone.
Yeah, I can start. I go to the taco truck, and I really think it has been a really welcome addition to Yountville. I hear from many, many people that they really appreciate having that taco truck there, and they use it a lot. And I also recognize that there are some neighbors that have some concern, but I just think that overwhelmingly that this has really been a very positive addition and diversification of our businesses to Yountville. So especially with the limited months and just the additional hour, I'm in full support of approving this this resolution for the extended hour.
And if I could ask specifically your comments, because the staff report does call out two different elements. One, which you just addressed, they were suggesting a potential shortening of the proposed months from something like April through September, but I believe what you just stated is you're fine with the request as it is, but are you also in support of a 30-day review of the new conditions?
I think that we've really, asked a lot of Taco Garcia already. Once we put it in place, we had another 6-month review. I don't really think it's necessary, but, if it's something that the rest of the council feels is important, I think they'll pass this test, too.
Thank you. Councilmember Hall?
Okay. So I'm trying to ascertain in my mind, maybe this is a question for staff. The economic benefit of having the taco truck open for an additional hour, 6 days a week, so 6 hours times 8 months, and what the real value of that is to the taco truck and ultimately to the town, because that's where we're trying to decide the resources and the allocation of that. And does that offset the potential nuisance factor associated with the residents who live around it for their one additional hour at night? And I sat on the fence on this for a while because I'm thinking about it. My neighbor goes out in his backyard and he lights the barbecue at 8 p.m., shucks back a couple of beers, and I got the nuisance factor, but they don't do it 6 nights a week. And that's where I'm I'm wavering on how I feel about this. So I think that, my position is that, wanting to have quiet enjoyment of my backyard, starting at 8 p.m., and I recognize that there is a noise ordinance, and I could call on my neighbor, which I don't because I'm a nice guy and I'm loud too. So, but I'm concerned that the residents who did take the time to express a concern, that we want to make sure we recognize that they are that their issues are valid, and that we're basically assuming that the return that we're going to get from this by taking away an hour of their evening 6 nights a week. It's not every night, but it's also not like my neighbor who's barbecuing in the backyard. He's doing it once a week. That we're actually approving something that we're listening to all residents in that case. And I recognize that Ponchos doesn't have a direct financial impact from this, but I would submit, and I don't know the answer to this, but I would submit that the patrons of Ponchos certainly would be supportive of having it stay longer because, hey, you want to go out and grab a bite to eat while you're having some pub time? It sounds like a great idea, and I'm on the fence on this, and I'm open to hearing all the discussion around the council, and I respect Margie's opinion, and Tacos Garcia is fantastic. I'm worried about the folks that live, behind the place that are expressing concern and taking the time to put that before us. So those are my comments for now. I haven't voted yet. So with regards to your question on a shorter duration, I think, not knowing if I would support this amendment for an additional hour, I would be more inclined to support it for a shorter duration, so the April through September, and I would be more inclined if there was an additional review. Is that fair?
Yes, thank you very much for addressing those items. Councilmember Dornbecker.
Well, I must say I've been a very happy customer of Tacos Garcia, mostly on Wednesday nights when I play bocce, and I hate it when I get there at 5 after 8 and it's closed. I can see that the people who live around it may have difficulty, and I think I would be inclined to say that because March is still so chilly, and this is it's not as easy as it seems to adjudicate this, but I think that I would be more inclined also if it were April through September. I don't know about having an extra, because they are subject to review already, so I don't know whether that would be of importance to me. But I think the food is wonderful. I like having it there. And I think for just the summer months, I think I can support that.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I don't really have a serious issue with the request. People brought up some concerns about the impact initially. I haven't heard about, and that's why I wanted clarification, I haven't heard any substantive complaints or issues that have come up as a result of this that is any different than existing businesses already around. So I think that extending till 9 o'clock generally makes sense. As I was thinking through the hours, to me it probably should coincide with daylight savings time, although I think daylight savings time now may go into November. But I can get the after dark idea, makes some sense to me. I don't have a strong opinion about March, October, April, September. I don't think that the impact will be that significant. The one thing I do have concern about in the staff report that hasn't been talked about has to do with parking. And again, I don't have a concern in this situation, but I do have the concern about saying, well, they're busy from 5 to 7, and then we've got another use that's going to take over from 7 to 10, and then from 10 to... I don't think we should be parsing up our parking in such a way. These folks are already here, so I don't think that the change will have much of an impact. But in the future, I wouldn't want to see Washington Square coming in saying, well, this business is going to be open from these hours, so we have these parking spaces, but they close at this time, and very getting semantical about trying to get around parking regulations. So that's my only thing is in my opinion, we're not setting a precedent here. This is a unique situation. So I'm fine supporting with the resolution as it's written. I do think there should be at least a 30-day review, and I go either way. I'm fine with any of the seasonal issues.
Thank you for all of your comments, and my comments will be kind of a mixture of many that have already been stated. My original thought was, I kind of agreed with what was the compelling interest in that additional hour. From a business standpoint, compared to the potential impact as it gets closer into nighttime, quieter time for residents in the adjacent homes. However, as the Vice Mayor's question to staff targeted, we have received little to no complaints during the hours that have been in operation to date. If there was a history of concern as the 8 o'clock hour rolled along, I would certainly feel differently about trying out 9 o'clock. So I can support this with, I'll only support it if there is a review, because I do want to see if we are now getting into a different time into the evening where, while it might seem like an inconsequential shift, it might have a more dramatic impact on the residents in the neighborhood than we would feel comfortable. So I would require for my own vote that we have a 30-day review period, not for the general business per se, but for the new condition, the late hour. And with that, since we are going to have a review, I'm not married to the time period either. I think the business will drop off on those cold nights if April's too early. If September the weather changes, the patrons just won't be there. So those are my comments. I do think it has found a spot in the community. There are certainly people that live here and work here that have enjoyed having this as an option, and I look forward to keeping it as an option, but I don't want to create a nuisance by too much of a comfortable good thing. So I think reviewing it after we make this adjustment would be appropriate. So with that, if someone's willing to make a motion, we can
I would
address this item.
love to make a motion to approve resolution number 2958-11, approving a use permit amendment to extend the closing hour of operation to 9 p.m. from March through October for the Taco Garcia mobile food vendor located in the Pontus parking lot at 6764 Washington Street.
Second.
And before voting for discussion, are you willing to add a 30-day review to that motion?
It's in the resolution.
It is. Okay. With that, there has been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All right. Any opposition?
No.
Thank you very much. That motion does pass. So that is, that's item 11B. That has been approved. I'll just wait here for just a moment as we have a little shift in the audience. But we will be moving right on to item 11C, an appeal hearing, 1873 Yountville Crossroad. Consider an appeal filed by Brian Russell, Russell Law Group, on behalf of David Lamond, to a decision by the town manager to deny a request to provide out-of-town water service to 1873 Yountville Crossroad. And before we continue on this item, I will need to recuse myself because I live within 500 feet of this property and would not want to give anyone the impression of any kind of bias one way or the other toward this discussion. So I will be stepping down and ask Vice Mayor Chilton to chair this item.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'm going to ask the town attorney if you could just give us a very quick overview. This is a public hearing, although its structure is slightly different. We typically do not review administrative items within the town, but there is an appeal process that if someone disagrees with the ruling that has been made or the decision made by town staff, that can be appealed to the town council, and that is what we are dealing with tonight. So Arnold, if you could give me a brief overview for everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Vice Mayor and members of the Town Council. At the outset, I do want to note that my role this evening is a bit different than normal. As the town attorney on this matter, I have been providing advice to the town manager and staff, and not to the town council. Also present this evening is Matt Gorman, Assistant Town Attorney, who will be serving as advisor to the town council on this item. Case law has required that there be a wall of constructed between members of the firm that represent a body, a legislative body, and in this matter, I want to place on the record that I have not advised or consulted with the town council on this one matter. Conversely, I think Mr. Gorman will concur that he has not consulted or advised the town staff on this matter, so that there is the required procedural wall of insulation between legal counsel within the same firm. And this matter is before you. There is a procedure that the council will need to follow, which will allow for due process, and the applicant will have the opportunity to present their case. Staff will have an opportunity to present their position, and then also the applicant or individuals in favor or in opposition to the applicant's position, and then ultimately a opportunity to provide rebuttal comments from the applicant. Then it goes up to the council level. But I just want to put on the record, Mr. Gorman, have you advised town staff on this matter?
I have not. Thank you for that overview. Just as a point, at this point, I'm going to ask town staff to give a presentation. Once that is finished, we will allow the applicant or their representatives to make a presentation on their position, and then I will give the opportunity for the public to speak in either support of the applicant's position or in opposition of the applicant's position, and then the applicant will have the ability, and as will town staff, to rebut anything that has been said, and we will close the hearing and have a decision made by the council. So if I could start with town staff.
Thank you, Mayor, or Vice Mayor, I should say. The town of Yountville has historically provided out-of-town water service to the parcel at 1873 Yountville Crossroad, as this parcel was served by the predecessor Yountville Water District prior to incorporation. There are presently 33 grandfathered out-of-town water customers. Per our agreements with the Veterans Home and the Department of Water Resources, where we purchase our water, the town is prohibited from additional connections that are out of town. And the town has had a long-standing policy of not allowing new out-of-town customers dating back to 1977. Access to and continued use of grandfathered water service has been a significant issue and discussed by prior councils at a number of times. In 1985 and 1993, the town council approved its most recent policies related to out-of-town water service in an attempt to clarify, identify, and determine all possible water service connections. The following resolutions, which are included in the background material and provided for reference, provide policy guidance related to out-of-town water service. They include Resolution 288, dated May 11, 1976. Resolution 473, dated March 10, 1981. Resolution 645, dated October 22, 1985. And Resolution 943-93, dated in February 3, 1993. Resolution 645 outlined the following criteria for eligibility for out-of-town water service. A service connection to the property existing prior to the date of that resolution, i.e. 1985. Water connection charge paid based on the prevailing connection charge at the time of connection. A house existed on the property as of October 22, 1985. Water service restricted to that serving one single-family home, and the town will not allow water services permitted to be used for landscape or agricultural irrigation. Resolution 94393 identified several additional parcels that were deemed by the town council to be eligible for water service based on the property having paid for a connection or a line stubbed out to the water system. It also continued the restriction on out-of-town water service not being used for landscaping or crop irrigation, and established a usage limit equivalent to an average in-town 6,000 square foot single-family residential lot, and I note lot, not homes. And that was determined by the town council at that point in time to be 100,000 gallons of water annually. I'd like to note that the property located at 1873 Yountville Crossroad had met all of the conditions of the above referenced resolutions, and the town had provided the property with water service to the then existing 2,000 approximately square foot single-family residential unit located on that property as an out-of-town water customer. Some significant service history timelines. June 2010, the prior property owner selling the property calls to advise that he has sold the parcel and provided his transferring account and closeout information, and indicates that the account should be transferred to the new property owner, Lamont. June 30th, 2010, no new account information has been provided to the town, no transfer, no account reestablishment. So therefore, the account is just sort of suspended in status. It has no owner, so to speak. August 4th, 2010, property owner representative contacted town staff and advised that they do not want water service at this time. Copy of the service request prepared by staff is included in the report. Subsequently, Public Works crews ultimately remove the water meter from the site. August, September, and I have to apologize, there's a typo, that should be 2010. Consultants and contractors worked and talked with staff about obtaining will serve letter from the town. It's noted that the town did not provide a will serve letter to the county while they were going through their building process with the County of Napa, which I should point out, the County of Napa has land use jurisdiction over the site because it is an out-of-town property. There is no development rights or no inference from that point on the town staff. Our only reference is the water service. November 15, 2010, customer request of town to restore water service. At that time, staff reviews it and notes that the house has been demolished and the water line is not serviceable, and therefore they're not meeting the conditions of Resolution 645 and as modified by 943-43, as there's nothing to serve. Spring and ongoing, the property owner commences construction of approximately 6,000 square foot plus single-family residence and swimming pool on the property. Beginning in February, there have been conversations with attorneys representing the property as to water service. The attorney requested and the town agreed to do a review of the decision that had been made. That was completed on March 30th, and the town manager, I confirmed the decision that had been made, put that in writing, and advised the attorney representing the applicant that they did have the right to appeal the town manager's decision. On April 11th, they chose to do so, which brings us to May 3rd, which is the fact that it is an appropriate situation where, when there's a matter of interpretation on a policy situation like this, where the town staff role is to implement and execute our belief in terms of the interpretation of the policy. If there's a question, that becomes the council's role to make that ultimate decision. Again, basis for the town manager determination. The following was stated in my letter to Mr. Russell dated March 30th, 2011. The town previously complied with its obligation to provide water service to that property consistent with the provisions of Resolution number 943-93. It was the action initiated by your client to terminate the existing water service account and the decision by your clients to remove the house, which existed prior to October 22, 1985, which has resulted in your client's failure to continue to meet the service requirements of Resolution number 943-93. Since service was terminated at the request of your client, and since the residence at 1873 Yountville Crossroad has subsequently been removed, the town has no obligation and, more importantly, no legal authority based on those resolutions to provide water service to the property owned by your client. I will also point out, for the record, all of the resolutions, correspondence material, and also all of the correspondence provided by Mr. Russell have been included in the packet for the council and public review.
And Mr. Vice Mayor, if I may, one other thing I want to make sure I put on the record in terms of Mr. Gorman's review of this matter. Mr. Gorman, have you or I consulted or deliberated on this matter, and have I given you any instructions with respect to this matter?
We have not consulted whatsoever.
Ed, is that all from town staff at this juncture?
Unless there are any questions that the council may have of staff.
Are there any specific questions at this time of staff before we move on? Thank you very much for that presentation. I will now call up the applicant or a representative of the applicant to present their appeal. If you could state your name and who you are.
Good evening. My name is Brian Russell. I represent the Lamont family on this matter. I want to thank the staff and the council and the vice mayor for your time on this matter. Hopefully we can resolve it and come to a simple resolution on it. I think this is a case of misunderstanding more than anything else. As you know, the 1873 Yountville Crossroad has always been served by municipal water since 1960. And once the Lamont family bought the property, they intended always to continue water service to the property. At the time that they were doing construction on the property, they did contact the town council or the town manager or the representatives thereof, and it was the construction company that actually did so, the general contractor, and stated, we do want to continue water service, but we're doing construction on the property, therefore we want to avoid any major water spillages that might happen during construction, so can you hold off connecting water until we're ready? So essentially what you see is a month later, the landowners did contact the town saying, okay, we're ready for water service, turn it back on, we're ready, and that's when this issue came up. So at no time was there any intent for the landowners to discontinue water service. It's really a miscommunication, I think, by the people hearing it and the people possibly conveying it, just a miscommunication. So my client always intended to use the water. It's shown on the plans that they submitted to the County of Napa for their building permits that they're using municipal water. There was always an intent for those property owners to use it. And further, just some clarifications. In Mr. Rogers' letter, he stated that the landowners capped the lines, quote unquote. This just never happened. I mean, that is false. And so once again, all these resolutions that Mr. Rogers stated, they're regarding new service. This service is an existing service, and this house was removed. Yes, a new owner purchased the property, and they're building a house. So no infrastructure has to be put in place in order to continue the water service. And the Lamont family is just ready to continue to provide the town with money and continue their water service. So thanks. I'm here as well as the contractor who is working on the property, who actually spoke with the town. I guess it was the Public Works Department regarding the service, and he's here to answer any questions as well as I am as well.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the council?
I have a question.
Councilman Hall?
I have a question. So you say the contractor's here as well?
Yes, he is.
So I guess my question is specifically what was conveyed? Was it in writing? Was it a phone call? What was conveyed with regards to temporarily disconnect? I'm trying to make sure I understand what temporarily disconnect means, because it sounds to me, in some ways, like it means to not receive the charges associated with the water service on a short-term basis, because you're not going to use it, but I'm trying to understand, how is it conveyed and what does it mean?
Sure. They got the essentially the yellow slip that said, please put the water service in the new owner's name. So what he did is he took the slip, I believe, down to, and he can clarify this in case I'm misstating it at all, down to the town and said, yes, we want to continue it. It's going to be in the Lamont family's name, but as I said, we're doing construction. We don't want to bust the water line and have a big spill and have a lot of water loss, essentially. And so that's why you see on the note in the packet there, it says not at this time. He's conveying not at this time. We don't want to have water service, or he doesn't want to start the water service, but let's wait a month, and of course we want water service. This is our plan. So it was verbally in person.
I have a question, and that is, I received this information too, and I see that a copy of the slip that you're talking about was delivered August 4th. And it says new owners do not want to use water at this time. But then there wasn't anything more until November of 2010. So that's several months later. Is that correct?
I believe it is, yes. I mean, it's not, there's no time period that says if you don't put the water in a new person's name by an X amount of date, they've relinquished their right to the water or the property's right to the water. There's nothing in the regulations that say that.
Well, that's not what I was asking, but thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, let me make sure I understand that. When was the original property demolished? Was it after August 4th? Because the basis, I believe, if I interpret this correctly, that the basis of the availability to the water to the property owner was that they had a residence on the property as of October 22, 1985. The moment that was raised, I think that's the proper term, that right dissolved, is my interpretation, but I want to make sure I understand, because on the 4th of August, they say they don't want service to this existing meter, home, or whatever. When was the property actually raised? Was it before November the 16th? Between August 4th and November the 16th? Do we know that date?
I would have to ask the contractor. I don't know the exact date that it was demolished, and I'm sure it was a process of a couple of weeks.
Because my assumption would be that if it were, the original, the basis for having a water service was that the house that was on the property was there as of October the 22nd. I'm sure I'm getting that date wrong, but the 1985, according to our resolution 645. No, I got it right. Stickler for numbers. So I'm just trying to make sure I interpret that correctly, because it doesn't sound like that existing residence is still, I know it's not there because I drive by it basically every day, but.
Right.
So the basis for, or by which we were providing water as the town went away as soon as that residence went away. That's at least my interpretation of why I believe the staff followed sort of the protocol. That's my interpretation by me. I'm looking for an answer with regards to the timing on when the house was raised.
I would have to defer to the contractor, but I can address our other issue in terms of demolition of the house. I don't know if the resolution states that a house has to continue to exist. It just says that the house did exist at the time that the resolution. So I guess there's a resolution reading question there.
That's the interpretation issue that we're all in this room for tonight.
Yeah, I believe that, no, it didn't have to, a house doesn't have to continue on the property. That's not what the resolution says. The resolution says that a house was on the property at the time that the resolution was enacted. And I'll read it to you if you're making a...
The house exists as of. It doesn't say that the house exists on the property as of. It doesn't mean that it was ever raised and replaced. Exists.
Right, it says the house exists on the property as of October 22nd, 1985.
And I would assume that means to continue to exist.
It just says does exist, I think.
As of that date.
Yes, and existed as of October 22nd, 1985.
I think we're agreeing that
Okay.
it had to exist there.
Yes.
But it no longer exists.
That's correct.
Okay.
But it, yes.
Okay. fair enough. That's my only question.
Question that I have, you have stated repeatedly that there was, I will use the word, you can tell me if that's wrong, sort of the assumption or the intent all along to reestablish water service, et cetera. If I read the timeline in here, even before the property was changed, I don't know when the date of sale was, but June 2010, the old property owner calls, it says, I'm transfer the account to the new owner, paid the final invoice at the end of the month. There was no account transfer information provided by the new property owner, and it was suspended. And then several days later, there was a contact which advised, which is what we read here, somebody came. And then you no longer have service for some period of time. I struggle with what Councilman Hall just said, which is the idea that there was a house, the idea that you could tear down a house and not build a new house for 1 month or 30 years. That doesn't seem to be reasonable within what's intended here. I don't know if Mr. Gorman, if you want to comment on the ordinance and the idea of a house. It doesn't say the house, but I think it's, to me, it's implicit, but I'd like to hear your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor and members of the council. What you're struggling with is interpretation of what the ordinance means. And so that is one of your roles as a town council, is to interpret the town's ordinances. Obviously, there's one position that's being advanced by the appellant as to how to interpret that provision. And the town has taken a different approach. The town staff, town manager has taken a different approach in terms of interpreting the ordinance. So part of the purpose of the hearing is for you to consider the interpretation of the appellant and compare that with how the town manager has interpreted it, and then decide for yourself how to best interpret it. I'm here as your advisor to, help answer questions and guide you through that process. But based on what I've read in the staff report and can discern from the appellant, I think that both options, as in terms of what's presented before you right now, are viable ways to interpret it. So part of your role is to consider what the town intended when it originally adopted the resolution and apply it to the current circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any further comments before we move on?
I'd just like to share, entitlements, I believe, for water service run with the land, and just because a house was potentially taken down by the owner, if it was destroyed in a fire, does that mean that they lose their entitlement? If it was destroyed in a tornado, does that mean they lose that right? If the previous owners decide to build a larger house on the property, do they therefore lose their right to water service? It just seems illogical more than anything else. So that's what I'd like to share.
Okay, I am going to move in our process here. Thank you. We'll come back to you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open this up to anyone here in the public. If you would like to make
Vice Mayor, I'd like to clarify a few statements.
Please.
One, Mr. Russell referred to a statement about the fact that the property owners capped the water service. That's a misrepresentation on the part of Mr. Russell on what was said in the letter. What we said was the line was capped. The line was actually capped by the public works staff because water service was terminated, the meter was removed. So I just want to clarify that. Also, if you refer to the first document on the work order notes, Mr. Russell talks about the fact that somebody came in August 4th in person and filled out the forms. That's not the case. This was a telephone response. You'll see Celia Dodd's initials, and she put at the footnote phone. And I do want to point out the industry standard when utility account customer services, when a property is sold, we provided them, as was referred to, you heard it in their own words, a yellow tag saying, come establish your account. No affirmative action was taken by the property owner's representatives to continue the account. And in fact, they provided direction to the staff to terminate the account. We don't have temporary accounts. I mean, we don't put accounts on hold because then you have a situation where people would be calling up and canceling their water service on a basis of, I'm not going to be home for 2 weeks, so turn off my water, turn off. And in this particular case, and I think it is important, there's two significant facts. One, water service was never continued. The account that had been in good standing wasn't continued. And then secondly, when they realized that and they came in, the condition of the property did not meet the conditions of the resolution because there was nothing to serve. And that hasn't changed. The property in its current configuration still doesn't meet the definitions because there's no dwelling unit or property parcel home to serve. And as a footnote, and you'll see it in the footnote records of the inspection by the Public Works staff, the water line was damaged, in fact, during the demolition and couldn't be used. So just a couple clarifications with regard. Also, you'll note that the date on the plans that they're showing in the submittal is September 24th. The construction occurred, the demolition, excuse me, of the property occurred after August and prior to the request to restore water. And I had several conversations with the property contractor, Mr. Grassi's representative, with regard to that. So, I mean, I do think the facts that they lay out, show where we're at. And right now, consistent with the interpretation, there's nothing to serve water. There is no property, there is no home unit to provide water service to, consistent with that provision.
Mr. Russell, I'll give you a chance for a rebuttal if we can move for public comment. I'm not sure how much there will be, and then you can make any comments you want to make. I want to open up this portion for anybody in the public who would like to support the applicant's appeal or oppose the applicant's appeal. And I see one person who's coming up.
Actually, Mr. Vice Mayor, I think it would be best if there's anyone who wishes to first initially support.
Want to do a support?
Right. That way we'll have that in certain order. So I don't know if the contractor wishes to.
I just want to provide additional information.
We'll get to that when. Let's start first. If you think you might want to support, then you can ask that question. But if anybody wants to support the applicant's appeal, you're part of the applicant group. Is that okay? Come on up.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Niles. I'm with Grossi & Associates. We're the general contractor doing the work at 1873 Yountville Crossroad. And it was me personally that called to respond regarding the water service. And I think, consistent with what, Mr. Russell is saying, there's some semantics issues with words on suspended versus terminated. And certainly, intent, as Brian stated, was never to, discontinue water service completely. So, I've picked up the yellow notice. Here it is. That was left on the door. It says, please have service put in your name. It was in response to this that I called. I did telephone to town hall and spoke with someone, I'm not sure, whoever on staff picked up the phone. And the note regarding that phone conversation, which was supplied this evening, is consistent. The dates match. This is obviously the day that I called in. And and it says clearly that we don't wish to have the water turned on at this time. At that point in time, we were engaged with the Lamons. We understood that we were going to be replacing that home. There was not a reason to have that water service turned on. As Brian indicated, it's just potential for more damage. So we decided to wait. Now, with respect to timeline, so that was, let me get back to notes here because they were I think really very accurate. So if it was August 4th, then that service was, or that the phone call was made regarding the water service. Mr. Rogers mentioned that prior to that, service had been suspended when the former owner said that he had sold the property. So service at that point was in suspension. And what I don't understand, and again, and I think it's a misunderstanding or it's a semantics, that somehow we moved from suspended to terminated. And I don't know how that happened. If I called in good faith to say we're going to be making changes on the property, it doesn't make sense to have the water service turned on yet. If that's what constitutes termination and foregoing a right or on the property is what I'm struggling with. And I think that's part of what we're looking for this evening. So the demolition of the house occurred and I don't have the exact date, it was in the month of October. That was when we demolished the old white stucco house that was there on the corner. We had already, at that point, we had building permits in hand and we were starting construction on the new replacement home. So between August 4th, when we called regarding the water service, next contact was actually within a month when it was actually Napa County Environmental Management, I believe, that contacted the town regarding a will serve letter, because it was on our project plans that that's where the water source for the home would be, is from the town of Yountville. So Environmental Management contacted Yountville regarding a will serve letter for the new home, and and the town did not provide that, or said they would not provide that. So as we proceeded, there were a number of conversations, most of them were with me, back and forth between myself and the town manager regarding this and why there was a problem. I had asked to have the water, the reason it was a problem for me at the time was because I asked for the water service to be turned on so that we could utilize it during the construction process. It's just simple thing, washing tools, drinking water, those kinds of things. So we'd asked for that to be turned on, not to service that house because that house was going to be removed, and shortly thereafter was removed. So I hope that kind of clarifies timeline, and certainly I wanted to convey the intent on my behalf. I don't know that if someone had mentioned if you don't have this water service transferred to the new owner's name, immediately you may lose that entitlement. Certainly we would have reacted differently. So I don't know if there's any other I know there were some questions I'd be happy to answer that you guys had if I didn't already.
No, I think you answered my question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to speak at this time in support of the applicant's appeal? Can you state your name, please?
Katya Leffelholtz. I'm a resident of Yountville. I have absolutely no relation to the appellant. I had some questions, obviously there's an interpretation of the resolution, and they're appealing to have more leniency, a lenient interpretation. They obviously intended to have water, and there was a residence there. Are they supposed to now get water from a well service? And is it going to be unsightly? And I have a question as to the cost. What is the cost impact? Does it impact the town, or is the applicant going to pay for it? And so it just seems like the intent was to have water, and I would encourage a lenient interpretation in favor.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else who wants to speak in support of the applicant's appeal? Anyone? I will move on to anyone who would like to speak potentially or definitely in opposition to the applicant's appeal. Please come up. Billy? You don't have to commit right now that you're opposed. You can ask your question.
Billy Hewitt, 9 Landy Way. I have a question about wells also that Katya just asked. But this activity is in my line of vision from my house or when I step out of my house. So I saw a lot of heavy equipment going in out there and a lot of grading going on, thinking, what are they building out there? You know, it obviously was very large. So I inquired of staff, and they said it's not in Yountville, it's in the county. So I called the county to inquire what was being built there, and the young clerk, and I don't know a date on this, but I know the existing house was still there, and it's just starting to, they were just starting to clear the property out on the Yountville Crossroad. And I called the county and asked what they were building, and she said, 6,000 square foot house, a bocce ball, a swimming pool, and I think two out buildings. Whatever it was, it fit in the parameters of the 11 acres or whatever. And water has always been near and dear to my heart. So I asked, what were they going to do for water? How was this going to be water? And she said it was her understanding that they were digging wells. So that's just what I heard. And I have no idea who it was, but it was before all the building took place.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to make a comment in opposition or potential opposition? No? Let me come back to Mr. Russell. Mr. Russell, would you like to rebut any of the comments you've heard here or any of the statements from town staff? Add any new information? Go for it.
Thank you for the opportunity again. First of all, I just want to apologize for miscommunicating how the communication was between the general contractor and the town. It wasn't my intent to mislead you in any way. I assume it was a phone call, and it was a phone call, and so I'm sorry that I said it was an in-person conversation. And then I just want to, respond to Steve Rogers' comments saying that the town doesn't temporarily or provide temporary service or suspension of service. It would have been great for him to communicate that. If that wasn't the case, if that wasn't an option, he would, once again, a phone call, an email, we communicate by these means all the time and saying, your option is to either continue with water service or terminate, and it seems like you plan on using the water service. Sign up and let's go. And we would have signed up that day. It's not a big deal. We always intended to use the water service. So that's it. If it wasn't an option to temporarily suspend it like we thought it was, it would have been great to hear that from people who make the rule. And finally, I do think water rights and this water right that's been established does wrong with the land, and there's no language in here that says if you don't reconnect 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, whatever, then you lose your right. There's nothing in here. You can pile through it and you can ask these guys. So, they do have the right to the water. The entitlement runs with the land, and I just hope we clear up this miscommunication and move forward. So thank you very much, and I'm here for any questions.
Can I ask Mr. Gorman, could you respond to the statement that Council just made about entitlement runs with the land, et cetera?
Oh, well, I can, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of Council. For this type of a proceeding, the applicant bears, or the appellant bears certain burdens of proof. And so when there's assertions made, you as the body hearing the matter have to weigh those matters, and the appellant in this instance is the party who bears the burden of proof. So in terms of the comments that are made, is there authority that's being presented to this council to agree with that statement? There's no legal authorities that are cited. I'm not aware of anything in the appellant's papers that support that. And from a legal standpoint, I don't see the connection of the municipal water services being something that runs with the land. So my perspective on that is that there's not authority presented to the council to substantiate that statement right now. It's up for the council to then consider that in light of the other comments made by the town manager and make a final decision on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russell, would you like to expound on your previous
Sure,
authoritative comments?
Well, I'd love to provide you information, but there isn't any. That's what I'm telling you. There's no proof to what I'm saying because it doesn't exist. There's nothing in your resolutions. There's nothing in the code.
But, I'm sorry, you made the statement,
right?
A definitive statement that the entitlement runs with the land. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, the entitlement runs with.
Yeah.
Yes, the water right should run with the land, and I'll stick by that statement.
Okay. Duly noted.
Yes, I have a
would you like
question.
to ask a question?
My question is, why did the new owners not just have that account transferred to their name and have it, not necessarily activated when they knew this was going to happen, but why did they not take that step?
I think that's what Mr. Niles was trying, what he was doing. I believe that was his intent by contacting the town, saying we'd like to put it in the Lamont family's name. That's what he was doing when he contacted them in the telephone conversation.
Thank you.
So this assertion you just made is he contacted the town and said we want to transfer it. What's written on there is that we don't need it right now, or at this time we don't need water. So one of my concerns, and if you want to follow up on that, if you want to respond, is this idea of suspension. Suspension means you're not doing what you're supposed to do, and that will lead to termination at some point. It's like you don't pay your water bill, it will be suspended, and eventually we'll turn off your water. The idea that a person calling in who has water service should ask no questions about, so what are my options, or et cetera, I have a concern about that. You keep talking about the intent, but the intent was never stated to the town. You're not even in our jurisdiction on that. So that's where we're making a little bit of a leap of faith of, well, we meant to do X, but we didn't.
Well, like I said, the building permits that were submitted always showed water being served by municipal water.
To the county of Napa.
Yes. So there was one intent there. And once again, we're talking about he said, she said. I think it's really clear. Either you say, hi, Town of Yountville, I want to cancel my water. That's really clear. Hi, I'd like to suspend the water because I'm doing construction. I'm afraid if I hit the line, water's going to burst everywhere. Can you hang on for a month until we want to reinstigate the water is something really different.
And are you saying that that's what was said, is we're going to
Yes.
come back in a month on the phone? We don't need it this time, but we're going to hook this back up after construction.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you're
Actually,
saying was said at that
was
conversation.
That's my understanding of the communication.
Okay. Mr. Hall.
Well, I think we're caught up in semantics, and I'm just going back to, and there was full recognition as of June 30th by the prior owner to the new owner that they needed to turn over the service. I think that's clear. I don't think anyone in this room disputes that was conveyed. What's questionable is that the first time it came up was on August 4th when it was communicated that they didn't want it at this time. But that's 2 months or a month and a couple days later, but then it wasn't even tried to be enacted until November. So, I think we're caught up in semantics, but I just having water service is not necessarily an entitlement. I don't know how to respond to the comments earlier, but I just don't know why. I don't know why your client wouldn't have come back and said on June 30th, yeah, just put it in the Lamont name, and we're going to write big checks for attorneys, and we're going to be building a big property out here, and we're going to pay for the water service for 3 months or whatever monthly fee there is, not knowing the town was going to go ahead and do this water rate increase and all that in the future. But they didn't do that. What they did is they said, we're just going to be silent on the issue until August the 4th. This is going to come up, and then we're just going to be passive and say, well, we don't need it this time, and now we've got the semantics in place that when we're ready to go back and turn it on November the 16th, bingo, we got water, and it doesn't matter that I'm drilling a well, because now I can utilize the town's municipal water service. And I don't know, just something is not consistent with someone who wanted to continue to have water service. That's the challenge. That's what I'm trying to digest here. So, I mean, can you explain why your clients just didn't sign up for it? Sure, you're part of the team here.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that. I think first of all, we all live busy lives, and I think, and I don't want to talk for the landowner, but I guess I am. They assumed that water was going to continue. They assumed that water was going to continue, and so what they were doing was putting it in their name, and that's what they felt the phone call was. I think if they knew that they had to, I guess, pay for the time period that the demolition was going on, they'd be happy to do it, knowing if they had to look back on where we are now and say,
2020,
of course, they would have said, of course, we'll pay for it the whole entire time. We'll pay double. It doesn't matter. I mean, we want the water service. It's not, like I said, I think it was a miscommunication of their intent, and their intent has always been to continue the municipal water service.
I have just a couple other quick questions, and maybe it's for Mr. Niles. Was there always a well on this property?
There is an existing well on the property. It's been there for years and years. I know at least the one prior owner, Mr. Mayeri, used it for watering his landscaping.
Okay.
Which is what, our client intends to do as well. Obviously, I mean, no one would pay municipal water rates to water their landscaping to. That is part of the ordinance that you can't do that.
Right.
Like I said, I take a certain amount of responsibility for this because I made the call, because I had no understanding of any sense of urgency to have the water signed up, turned on, when there wasn't a need for it. Certainly didn't have any understanding that could be lost, that entitlement could be lost by not immediately turning the water service back on. If I can respond to one other thing, is because it has come up a couple of times regarding, entitlement to water service running with the property. In Resolution 943-93, this is, and I believe this was the latest, right? This was the 1985. Just specific to this question, the resolution specifically calls out 3 parcels that had this entitlement, and not because they were currently having service, but because there was a lateral, there was a stub placed to those properties. And it identifies those by parcel number, so that specifically those 3 parcels were entitled to water from the town because the connection exists there. Okay, so, none of these 3 parcels are the one that we're dealing with, but in terms of responding to your question about does that entitlement run with the land, I think it's pretty clear from this resolution that it indeed does.
For these parcel numbers, but none of these parcel numbers are the parcel you're working on?
Right, but our parcel is no different. Our parcel, in fact, actually has been using water. It meets all of the other conditions as well. These 3 parcels didn't meet the condition of having a home in place. They literally just had a pipe ready to be connected, but they weren't using it.
My interpretation is that's exactly why they called out those parcel numbers, so it would be explicit if this issue were to arise.
Yes, because those 3 couldn't meet any of the other conditions. There was not an existing home there.
Which the property you're working on did until you
had an existing home until we.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I think our position's clear. I hope it is. Like I said, I feel somewhat, duped or, like I acted irresponsibly, but I, had no knowledge that there was a potential issue until we asked to then have the service turned on, and then this all came up. Beyond that, Brian has spoke to what, he believes the ordinance, states very clearly.
I'm done with my questions.
Do you have any further questions?
No questions.
Mr. Rogers, I see you chomping at the bit. Would you like to?
Well,
make
I think there's one thing I'd
statement?
like to clarify. The town sent out the yellow card. In fact, Mr. Niles presented and showed the yellow card. I'd like him to pass that to you all. The yellow card is the communications that the town told the property owner, come put your account
Mr. Russell, could you give that
in
to
the
the
name.
town clerk?
Actually, I'd like to go one step further, if we may, if we can ask the town clerk to make a photocopy so it's part of the record.
And to
Both
me,
front and back.
to me, this is important because
Thank you.
I think there is a communications issue, but I also think to assume, the town took the affirmative action to go out and say, please put the account in the name. Nothing happened. On August 4th, a phone call comes in and says, we don't want water at this time. There's no further communication. And then the assertion that, a month later. No, it wasn't a month later. It was November. That's 3 months, and the house was demolished. So if you're going to have water service for the purposes that they talked about, one, watering for the trucks and equipment, that's prohibited by what our ordinance is for. It's not supported for construction. It's only to be used for the home. But I really want to point out, the town communicated. If there's a communications issue, there should have been some questions being asked by the applicant. And I will point out, the town did point blank tell the county that it will not issue a will serve letter. None was provided, and the plans submitted on September 24th show a municipal well. But I think it's really critical that the town asked the property owner to come in and put the account in their name, and they did not do so.
Can I, Steve, hold on one second. Steve, in the staff reports on the timeline, it talks about in August, September 2001, consultants and contractors working on the residence, yada, yada, and it says refer to the email from the Public Works Director. Is that email, I didn't see it in here.
It's not mine.
Pardon?
It's not mine.
Of course,
All right.
I just sent the Public Works Director out of the room. But I didn't see that. I'm interested in what, we talked about the Napa County Environmental Management asking for a
The
served letter.
communications was between Riker Spence and the Public Works Director asking, and the Public Works Director confirmed that there was, that a will serve letter was not, and that we would not serve because of the conditions not being met.
Okay.
Sorry, can I respond real quickly?
Please.
To Mr. Rogers' statement. On that yellow ticket that you do place on the door, it doesn't say, please respond to us within X amount of days or you lose your rights to water. And by the way, don't call us. Come in and set up the water. There's nothing in there. They didn't do anything wrong. These people, if that is your policy, then it should be spelled out on the card.
Well, I guess my question there, you're talking about some reasonable amount of notice. If I put a shed in my front yard and then somebody comes and complains about it, I can't say, well, nobody told me that I can't build a shed in my front yard. I mean, there is a burden on the property owner to understand what the rules are. Would you agree with that?
Of course. But there's also a responsibility of the town to properly notify them if some regulation does exist, which I don't know if you point to any regulation that says if you don't respond within X amount of days, your water service is discontinued. You guys haven't, and Mr. Gorman can, I guess, clarify that, but I haven't seen anything that says if you don't respond within X amount of time, you lose your rights to your water.
It doesn't.
There's nothing in here that says that.
The yellow card has been, a copy, both sides, has been provided. We have copies of that. It does say on here, it was checked off. This was a date of July 29th, 2010. To advise you to call 944-8851, which is the town, and sign up for water service before 8/5/10, or water will be turned off. That's right. And it does say, please have service put in your name under the remarks and comments.
Right.
So I just wanted to.
So the date of the notice is July 29.
Yes.
And And so I made the phone call on the 4th of August. So, however many days that is, a week later. Before 8/5. Now, I don't have any reason to believe that whatever staff member I spoke to at the town thought anything more of it than I did when I said, we're not ready to have it turned on yet, we're going to be doing construction. But that's all, we were doing. I was making a phone call. I wanted to respond to the notice. I wanted to not fail to communicate. I wanted to respond. So that's,
Can I ask?
so that's in August, and then the next communication is in, well, the date on here isn't specific. I don't know when RSA Rikers contacted regarding the will serve letter. And then it was immediately following that my telephone calls started to the town to try and understand why the town wouldn't serve the property.
If you can hold for one moment on your question, Mr.
If I may ask a
Alvarez-Glasman.
question, Mr. Vice Mayor, of the applicant and network, his representative, there is a notation in blue ink and has sort of...
Those are my notes.
Okay.
I wrote that on there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I do want to point out that Mr. Alvarez-Glassman pointed out on this letter, anybody can have a copy of it if you'd like, it does say called 8-4 to disconnect, will reconnect later. So it does have a statement of disconnection. We don't know when this was written, but that has some intent on there. Councilor Dorenbecker, you have a question.
I do, and my question is, at the time that you made this call, did you say, please put the service in the names of the new owner?
No, I don't recall saying that specifically, no. I just said that we were doing construction work and that they would reconnect.
I see.
Mr. Russell, any further comments?
Not this time.
Mr. Perry Mason moment here? No? Okay.
My only comment that I want to make,
Yes.
Excuse me one second. I just want to make sure that when we leave this discussion, that the appellant always has the last say over
Sure.
this. So,
one point, Mr. Russell pointed out, and I don't think he properly reviewed the document, the statement was made that the consequences weren't advised, and I think the yellow form's very clear to advise you to call 944-8851 and sign up for water service before 8/5/10, or water will be turned off. Please have service put in your name. That wasn't done. And in fact, affirmative action was given to not put the water, and even Mr. Niles' own comments used the term, and I'm assuming whatever date, disconnect water service. And, I mean, the representation was made that the consequences weren't identified or a timeline provided, and that's not factually correct.
Any further questions from the council? I'll give Mr. Russell one last chance. Once we close the comment period, I will not accept comments from anyone in the audience or staff except for the attorneys if we wish to ask the attorneys some questions. Mr. Russell?
Yes, once again, if the intent of Lamont family was to continue the water service, this was a clear intent by them. Somehow, if we want to build cases for and against why they shouldn't have water, I guess you could do that. But there was clearly an intent on the part of Lamont to have water service. They responded within the time period allotted, and because a miscommunication of a message that might have been written properly or not conveyed properly over the telephone, I mean, are we going to penalize them for doing that? The water infrastructure is there, it's in place, it's been in there since 1960. This is an established right, and therefore I think that water service should continue to the property and that it is a right that runs to the land. And I look forward to a clean and clear resolution of this matter.
Thank you very much. I will, at this point, close the hearing, and we'll bring this back to the town council for deliberation. Our options here this evening, and if either of the attorneys will want to correct me if I'm incorrect, is what we're going to do is we're going to make findings in support or in denial of the appeal by the council, and then we will make a motion. We don't have it's not a resolution here, but we will direct staff, our attorney, to prepare a resolution of findings in support of the council's determination, either for denial of the appeal or support of the appeal, and we will bring this back for consideration at the May 17th, 2011 Town Council meeting for final passage. Is that correct?
Correct. And Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, if I may, I have a couple comments to help guide the discussion. First of all, I just wanted to reflect for the record that this yellow card was submitted and will be included in the formal record of these proceedings. Just to assist you in framing how you approach this issue and making the findings, you have a decision by the town manager to act on the issue of the water service. You have an appeal. So what's before you is the appeal on that, and the appellant carries the burden to challenge the decision of the town manager. And so what your task is to consider that appeal and to make a decision whether the appellant has met the burden to overturn the decision that the town manager made. So I think that might help you frame your issues. If you have questions from the legal standpoint of what the legal standards might be in evaluating the issues, but that's the context that this is presented to you in. There's a number of issues of fact that are presented by the appellant, and so there might be differences of opinion about what those facts are, so your task is to weigh those and to make a finding on those. There may be certain statements or evidence that weigh one way or the other, and so you have to evaluate that and make a decision on that, and all those findings will go into your ultimate decision.
Thank you very much. Councilor Moeller, you want to start?
I will start. I think my comments will be fairly simple. The first issue about the water runs with the land, I think that there was some statements that this is a matter of fact, but also there's a lot of confusion. I dug around as much as I could about whether it's municipal water or, riparian water, and there's a lot of information out there about the riparian water, so I came to the conclusion that I wasn't going to do any more locker room lawyering and decided that it was not clear. I've read all the documents very thoroughly and really listened to everybody, and I certainly have my opinions and my interpretation, but, with all the language about the intent and interpreting what we've heard and semantics and assumptions, I'm going to choose not to give you my opinions on that because they're just opinions. And instead, I'm going to make the finding based on an item in the staff report that says, which I think everyone will absolutely agree with, that there is no house to connect to and provide water service to. So, based on that clear, in my mind at least, very objective piece of information, I'm going to make the finding to uphold the town manager's decision based on that fact.
Thank you. Councilor Hall, do you want to?
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for the information. This has been interesting, to say the least, not something I had expected. But a lot of, as Margie, Councilmember Moeller, suggested, a lot of information, a lot of, I don't want to say innuendo, although maybe that's the correct word. I think there is an issue of semantics. I do believe that perhaps the intent may have been there, although with this new information about being advised that we're going to turn off the water, it is hard to refute that we time-bound a fact that the water was going to be turned off. And subsequent to this, the appellant didn't even put their name on the account at that point in time. So it does very clearly stipulate on that, which none of us here had until tonight, the information that perhaps is the missing link to what really we might have spun semantically, but now seems fairly clear that although they may have intended, they didn't necessarily follow the direction and the communication that the town had provided. And that is my opinion, but I believe it's also somewhat of a statement of fact, because even after given this, they did not put the name on the account. I do also concur with Councilmember Muller's comment that there is right now nothing to put the water account to, or the water service to, and I still fall back on my initial comment that the property that was intended to be connected to doesn't exist anymore, and so that right disappears with that. And that is my interpretation, and it is such that it is an interpretation, because I'm not a lawyer. But I would then also, at this point in time, have to uphold and would uphold the town manager's opinion and decision.
Thank you. Councilor Dornbecker?
Well, I'm very torn because I read in the resolution number 943-93 passed by the Yountville Town Council in 1993 that it says that, such policy may cause an extreme hardship where property owners have relied on the availability of water service to their parcels. But I think that the owners of this parcel were ill-served by their construction contractor and did not follow the protocol. I feel that, and there is no house on the property at this time, I feel that I reluctantly have to uphold what the town manager has ruled.
Thank you. I hear consensus, I believe. I'm going to generally agree with the council. I don't think there's any, nobody has disputed whether the water was disconnected or not. At that point, to me, step two is, if it was disconnected, do we have a situation where we are able to connect a new water account? And one of the things that I think that the town council in the past did was try to have an element of fairness. The water system existed before the town was incorporated as a town, but we don't even have jurisdiction to provide water service. We'd have to have a service area, and LAFCO would have to approve it, et cetera, to provide water outside of that. So at this point, when I read down through the four, I understand that maybe it's not perfectly clear, but I think that the intent to me is fairly obvious. It's not to create a entitlement in perpetuity, and therefore I also, with the rest of the council, agree to deny the appeal. Would somebody like to make a motion to that? And then direct town staff to bring us back on May 17th findings and to make that denial official.
Mr. Vice Mayor, at this time, it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to direct staff to prepare findings to support a resolution to uphold the town manager's decision to deny the water service.
I would like to make a motion to direct staff to make the findings that we have made here tonight that support that we uphold the town manager's decision to deny water service to this property at 1873 Yountville Crossroads.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. That resolution passes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And I will invite the mayor to return. Actually, I'm going to ask for a brief break. We will return here at 8:35 in about 6 minutes to continue with the next item, which people are still here for the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Before we move forward, Councilmember Dornbecker.
I have been advised by council that because I had a contract and received compensation to produce the silent auction for the Yountville Chamber of Commerce in November 2010, which exceeds the threshold established by the Political Reform Act. I will therefore not participate in item 12A.
Thank you for that clarification. As Councilmember Dornbecker leaves the room, I will ask now for a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Briefly, the item before you is consideration by the Council of continuation of a professional services agreement with the Yountville Chamber of Commerce, specifically for marketing and promotion of Yountville. The town has had a longstanding contractual relationship with the Chamber dating 18 years back to 1993. The current contract with the Chamber expires at the end of June 2011 and has a flat $225,000 initial base and provided for a CPI of up to 5% for years 2009 and 10, allowing for a maximum contract cost of $247,000. The last 2 years, the Chamber has declined the CPI adjustment and kept the base at the initial 2008 funding level of $225,000. To begin the new 3-year contract, they are requesting an increase in funding to $234,000, which amounts to a 4% increase over the 2008 base level and well less than what would have been in place had they elected to take the CPI. The town manager has met and discussed the proposed chamber agreement with Katja Loffelholtz, President of the Chamber of Commerce Board, and members of the Board of Directors. We've made some minor adjustments and cleanup to the contract language, which is part of our normal course every year to look at refining and updating it. I do want to point out that there is a unique town relationship to the Chamber in addition to our tourism base, where 70% of our budget is generated from TOT and sales tax. The Chamber acts as the town's agent for the installation of lighting for the Festival of Lights, which is approximately a $38,000 to $40,000 expense paid out of that particular contract. With that, the Chamber has prepared their annual report, and they're here to present their report. If you have any particular questions about some of the details in there, the general terms of the contract remain as they consistently have, which is to operate a visitor center, to provide a public relations firm under contract to provide marketing and exposure of the town as a high-end destination resort, to maintain an exciting and updated website, and to produce promotional material, and to coordinate 2 special events.
Thank you. Any questions of staff before we hear the presentation? No questions. So with that, welcome to the presentation.
Thank you. I am Katja Loffelholtz, the current president of the Yountville Chamber of Commerce. I have been a resident of the town of Yountville for 10 years, and I'm an intellectual property attorney. Thank you for allowing us to briefly present our accomplishments this past year. Just about every member of the town of Yountville business is a member of the Chamber and benefits from its efforts. In addition, we are also a brick-and-mortar visitor information center which serves the local, regional, and international tourists alike. Our mission statement: the Yountville Chamber of Commerce, governed by a volunteer board of directors, shall actively market the town of Yountville and chamber members to promote tourism and local businesses while contributing to the quality of life for the community. So to this end, we have accomplished the following items: comprehensive marketing and public relations campaign which targets the regional, national, and international visitor. Our Visitors Information Center is a tremendous asset to the community, as well as a major component in bringing visitors to the town of Yountville. It's prominently located at 6484 Washington Street. Our communications, we've developed a bi-monthly electronic newsletter. We've established new QR codes for smartphones, so you can get easy access to our website. We've developed a new and improved website with Total Chamber at yountville.com. It features our businesses, Google mapping, and links directly to the town of Yountville's website. And you can find us now on Facebook, too. In addition to that, we organize 2 individual townwide events that you're familiar with. We organize, promote, and produce these signature events. that promote the town of Yountville, bring tourists to town, and benefit the local economy, as well as engage the local community. The Chamber currently contracts with Coley Communications with a proven track record of meeting its objectives. You have a handout of the objectives for 2010-2011. Coley reports every 2 months to the Chamber about media impressions locally and regionally in the Napa Valley Register, the Contra Costa Times. We have also been featured in Departures Magazine, Travel and Leisure, Gourmet, Sunset, Condé Nast, Food and Wine. Coley also facilitates familiarization tours, allowing journalists to come from outside the area, experience the town of Yountville and its businesses, and report and promote Yountville and its businesses to tourists. Throughout the Napa Valley, Yountville is currently setting the trend in marketing and public relations, and we are the envy of the county. Some statistics for you. At the end of the third quarter, we've had 1,524 distinct mentions of Yountville due directly to the Yountville Chambers of Commerce marketing efforts. This amounts to a $1.4 billion in circulation and $20 million in ad equivalency. We are getting the word out. 79% of our visitor comes from California, so we target key metropolitan areas in California, such as the East Bay, Sacramento, San Francisco, San Diego, San Jose, as well as major metropolitan areas in the United States, such as Chicago, New York, Houston, Seattle. And when our press releases strategically market areas such as Canada, Australia, South America, etc., worldwide. The vast majority of these press releases reach the luxury traveler, leisure, food, and wine publications, as well as top news publications. Our Visitors Information Center serves approximately 45,000 individual walk-in visitors annually. This is in addition to its thousands of telephone calls and thousands of web inquiries. Our professional part-time staff puts in upwards of 2,400 hours, and these efforts are coordinated with a volunteer staff of about 3,650 hours. This helps to keep the Visitor Center, this brick-and-mortar building, open 7 days a week, welcoming visitors to our town. Our executive director assumes many roles. She's not only the Visitor Information Center operations manager, marketing and public relations assistants, member management and sales, merchandising, and importantly, producing, planning, and executing the town-wide events. The Yountville Visitors Information Center strives to maintain a professional atmosphere to provide visitors up-to-date, accurate information and help tourists enjoy our town and keep the visitor in town. If you haven't visited us, please drop by. See how we promote your business and maybe pick up a Yountville hat or cycling jersey. A couple of the events that are signature events. We just recently had the Taste of Yountville. This was established about 19 years ago, and it was scheduled during the slower winter months to bring the tourist to the town during the off-season. It's been very successful in the past. We've drawn upwards of 5,000 visitors for that day, which fills the Yountville lodging properties, restaurants, spas, retail shops, tasting rooms, etc. The same is true for the annual Festival of Lights, the much-loved and magical event that is held. Not only is the Chamber responsible for promoting and hosting and organizing this event, we are responsible for contracting with the holiday lighting, and we continue to search for cost-effective, environmentally friendly contractors to provide high-quality town lighting throughout the season and maintenance of the same. In addition to those two signature events, the Chamber also produces annual awards and installation dinner honoring members of our community and a volunteer board. We produce the Yountville Chili Cook-Off, and this is held in conjunction with the Yountville Days in the fall and the Veterans Day Celebrity Luncheon. All these events are designed to enhance business exposure, bring people to town, and engage the community. In addition to our comprehensive marketing and public relations campaign, our Visitor Information Center, and our year-long events, the Chamber produces business education and community outreach events. For example, in this past year, we've held, in conjunction with Gov and Mail, an employment law seminar and exit strategies for business seminar. to our members, our business members. We've had open forums for the community to meet the candidates night, and networking opportunities, business-to-business exchanges, mixers. And we just most recently had our business-to-business exchange at Masonry. It was very successful. Ribbon cuttings, and we've recently launched an ambassadors program where seasoned veteran chamber members go out to greet new and returning members and educate them about the chamber and how they can get the most value for the chamber, from the chamber. But what does this mean to you? Approximately 70% to 75% of the town's general fund revenue is derived primarily from the transit occupancy tax and sales tax. While there was a modest dip in the TOT revenue in 2008-2009, it's starting to trend positively, about 3.44% for the past 5 years. There are currently 422 rooms online, approximately $300 a night. And Yountville is a world-class destination. People come from all over to experience our hospitality. And all of this is the result of the Chamber's marketing promotional efforts. In addition, the sales tax revenue has increased. Retail sales jumped about 5.5%, the best in the past 5 years, and Internet sales on Cyber Monday rose to 16%. Restaurants and wine tasting rooms generate a significant portion of our sales tax revenues. As you can see, Yountville leads the Napa County in increased change. So the expectations and outcomes of continuing to contract with the Chamber for services. Yountville currently spends just over 3% of its overall budget to generate approximately 70 to 75% of its general revenue. This is an exceptional value for the town. And our goal as the Chamber is to keep Yountville in the forefront of the visitor's mind and a world-class destination. Thank you for allowing us to share.
Thank you very much. Are there any specific questions you would like to ask right now? No?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to offer any members of the public right now to comment on this. It's not technically a public hearing, but we always like to hear from our public. So if there are any other members of the public that would like to speak to this, you're looking at each other, but feel free to step up in any order, or I'll pick you. Thank you.
I like that I didn't have to present this time.
Former president, yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to say the one thing that I liked that has changed, Eric Housley, Ranch Market Chamber, former president for many, many moons. One thing that I really liked that we did a few years back was the idea of changing it to a marketing services type thing. And as much as we presented what we're doing as a whole, as a chamber, it's kind of hard to do what we do because it's not the typical chamber situation. So we do really feel that we try to take the money that is allotted for the marketing services. I know specifically when we've done things before and we've got bids, the bidding process for a nonprofit or a separate entity, and you guys know it when you guys do it in-house versus you bid it out and what you have to pay to do it. So I know that it really worked well for us to kind of open up all the books and open it up in that way and say, here's the marketing services contract that we do. So I think that's worked well for us. So if you guys have any questions on that stuff, I'd be more than happy to answer too. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We can always ask questions of the current president. You're fine.
Tom Shermang, 10 Foxglove Lane. I was the president the only time that Eric wasn't, before Katya came in. And I'd just like to make a point. I've been fighting this battle, it seems, for the 9 years that I've lived in town. There was somebody who spoke earlier today that said that the Chamber of Commerce didn't do anything for the locals. Now, I don't know what she meant by that. I mean, it's hard to interpret what's on somebody's mind. But every time I look at the amount of TOT revenue that comes in, then the sales tax revenue that comes in, I can't help but say that the Chamber of Commerce is doing a great deal for the locals. And if it's only that, and it doesn't have anything else to do with the events that occur in town that you can have a lot of fun with, that the beautiful parks and the bocce courts and everything else that have come out, then it's too bad that they can't see it. But I'll keep fighting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak on this issue? No, so we just have some guests this evening. All right. Well, thank you for your comments, members of the public, and I'll invite council to discuss this item. Councilmember Mueller?
I think that it's just really important, especially in these really still difficult economic times, even though our TOT is going up, to really be able to kind of pool our resources to accomplish some of these tasks, by funding different activities at the chamber. I think this really it's a good way to do things. We have our strengths, they have their strengths, and putting them together really is a great idea. But and I also remember, like a few meetings ago, our community center department came up and they were presenting their plan and their activities, and what we asked of them was to give us some more information so we could really delineate what they were going to do and what the benefit was going to be, and were they providing services that were important to people, et cetera. So what I would like to see here, because I kind of went through this and I listened to what Steve said. He kind of highlighted that the chamber operates a visitor center, which I think is critical to a lot of the stuff that goes on the website, and at least 2 different business information meetings. But then there was another piece which I think is incorporated into that, which is nicely laid out, which is we contribute, I assume that this is in that figure, the $38,000 for the chamber to do our lighting for our Festival of Lights. So what I'm saying was, I'd like to see something really kind of laid out. What are these, each activity, and how much are we paying for that? The purpose of those, and some way that that they're really measuring success. Like, I think there was one slide that talked about the number of hits on the website. So, is half our money going for that, or is it mostly going for promotion? I'm still a little clear of that. So that I would find very helpful to kind of have that menu list of exactly the services. I think it will also go to really help one of the public comment that we're all talking about here. What are they doing? We're going to have a very specific list of, this is what we're getting, this is generally what we're paying for, and we have measurable ways of showing that this is something we want to fund. So I would find that a very helpful piece to lay out here as we move ahead with this funding, and we're going to be talking about probably that when we do the budget as well. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dunbar, and thanks, Margie, Councilmember Mueller, for your comments as well. Obviously, I recognize the value the chamber provides to the community. I think one of the metrics that resonates with me is 3% for 70%, and although the chamber may not necessarily be entirely attributable to that 70%, it certainly does a very valuable service for the town in that regard, with regards to our TOT and the sales tax, and we recognize and appreciate that. I was also, when I read this, a little surprised that a lot of the funding goes to some of the events that we all appreciate and love in the town. Specifically, I think you said 17% of your budget goes to the Festival of Lights, which I think everyone in this community, present company included, and others that were here earlier this evening, also benefit from those activities. Even if you're just driving through town, it's clearly of a benefit. I see tremendous value in the chamber. I don't have any other comments other than I really do believe we're lucky to have such a strong relationship and to, I believe, in some ways, leverage one another. You bring to the table a lot of the skills and experience and aptitude that we may not necessarily have to administer and execute on the town's enterprise behalf. So it's a wonderful relationship, and I support it. And I would make my final comment with regards to the funding level. It's interesting to note that the chamber funding level has been held consistently flat since 2008. The economy at that period in time shows a clear, tight relationship between the two enterprises. And now, as we're starting to see lift out of the economy, I certainly can understand and respect that things cost money and people have to be supported, and all the services that you're buying and sharing with us certainly need to be supported as well. So, that's my comments.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I'll generally echo the comments that were made. I think it's easy to take for granted the fact that Yountville is doing really well, and I don't think any individual business or group can take credit for, this is exactly why it's doing well. It's the collective effort. It's the town's effort. It is the parks and the arts. It is the chamber and the efforts that are made. It is the businesses and everything that goes out there. It's just being a great place. I was over in Sonoma County earlier today, in a town not nearly as beautiful as ours, but I was a little bit struck by the lack of business activity that was going on in the business area, and it kind of reminded me of we're in this little bubble in Yountville. I mean, Yountville is, it's almost rock and roll again. It's crazy, and it's something that we should not take for granted, and we need to protect. And we've seen other towns sort of take it for granted and let things slide over time. So I do think that it is important for the town and its citizens to protect that source of revenue, because clearly the business community and the tourists bring in the money that pays for virtually everything that we do in this town. And most things that we take for granted as citizens here and that we love, that's where the money comes from. I mean, it doesn't come from all of us, thank goodness. So I do think that reinvestment. I do agree with Councilor Mueller. I think I always like a few more numbers, but having sort of a tie on this is where the money is going. The chamber, obviously, if anybody calls up and says, can I have a copy of your budget, they're going to give it to you. I mean, I've seen it before. There's always been a question of, people come up to me sometimes and make comments that, the town gives a lot of money to the chamber, or invests a lot of money in the chamber, and therefore, why don't you have the chamber do X or Y or Z? And it's never been really my belief that we, as the town council, should be micromanaging the activities of the chamber. We elect to support the chamber and think it's important. And if we didn't get information that we thought we should get, or we thought that the product was not good, then the town should always reevaluate that. And I think that should continue. But we're a small enough town, most of us kind of know what's going on. So I think it is worth noting, and you made the comment that it's flat, is that the request, which is great for the base funding level for next year, is lower than what was agreed upon for this fiscal year 3 years ago. So, I don't feel like the chamber is coming and saying we want all this money from the town for all these things when, we're in better shape than most cities, but things are still a little tight. Tough to get those numbers to all line up in the new budget, right, Kathleen? So I do support the continuation of this program. I've said it before, and I think it's worth asking ourselves, or the chamber should ask itself seriously, $40,000 to put little white lights on some trees for 2 or 3 months. To me, it's a lot of money, and I think the town looks great, but I question the direct tie to what creates on that. So I, for one, am not going to ever sit down and say, don't you ever think about canceling that. I think it should be thought about. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks for your comments. I'll try to avoid too much repetition, but I can strongly support our continued support for the chamber. One of the benefits that we have, not only is our chamber incredibly effective, and clearly looking at the numbers that we have been cited tonight, we as a town partner in a very positive, in a very fiscally responsible way with the chamber. We, as a town staff, could never support the kind of effort that's needed to remain one of the elite destinations in the world and to continue to serve our residents at the highest level that we do. This chamber, and I think this may be where some people come across with a business versus locals perspective, is other chambers and other communities have a more political agenda. This chamber does not. This chamber is about the community. As the town staff and the town council is about what can we do that enhances the community experience. Looking at some of the events we've referenced, people think they're town events, and they're chamber events, or they're partnered events, and that's probably the best way to do it. There is a seamless relationship there. And then it comes down to the numbers, and I think the chamber has been very responsive to reality and not getting overly aggressive with, well, let's just, hit up the town to make up some kind of a shortfall that the chamber might have, or the business community, due to general economic conditions. And I think we've had a very healthy and not only a healthy relationship, but a two-way relationship, and I would expect that to continue. You cited some great examples of what we either couldn't provide or would lose. The Veterans Day luncheon, again, I think people think that's a town event. That is a chamber event that we really benefit, and again, you get a lot of volunteers that may or may not be chamber members, but we partner together on that. The internet, electronic media, social media, all the marketing and promoting that you do, we don't have a staff to support that. So you really are, I see it as an extension of the town resources to bring in the business that we clearly rely on to continue living in such a wonderful place, provide such a great level of service to our residents. So I can support it. I can also support the 3-year term of it for the a little better certainty of for budgeting, so we know where we're headed. I think it goes quickly, underappreciated that you haven't maxed out the capability of the previous agreements that we've had. Again, understanding some of the situations that we're in financially. And then we do have to look at certain big-ticket items when it comes budget time. I've seen every year a detailed list of all the events, where the money goes, how much goes into operating, how much goes into salaries, all that. I know that's available. All we have to do is either ask for it or it'll be provided to us anyway without asking. But the big-ticket items, as the Vice Mayor said, we may need to evaluate that. Is it worth $18,000 for the fireworks, 4th of July? Is it worth $40,000 for the Festival of Lights? We may still say yes, but I think collectively we'll reach that point. So that's really all I have to say. I think it's been a very, very positive working relationship that I expect to continue and hope that we do continue it. So with that, is there a motion to be had?
Motion to approve Resolution 2963-11, approving the professional services agreement between the Town of Yountville and the Yountville Chamber of Commerce for marketing and promotional services and replacing Agreement 2008-220.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you all very much. Now please leave and get to work. And we will invite Councilmember Dornbecker back. Feel free to stay around or get back to work. Thank you all. We will now move on to item 12B, Bay Area, Plan Bay Area, Initial Vision Scenario Presentation, presentation of the Initial Vision Scenario and Town Council discussion and response to Association of Bay Area Governments and Metropolitan Transportation Commission. Staff report, please.
Thank you. This is actually two reports. One will be on a brief, I'll try to work through these slides fairly quickly. It's a presentation on Plan Bay Area and the strategic, or sustainable community strategy, and I'll refer to it as SCS after this. It's a mouthful. This is part of and required by Senate Bill 375, and will have land use, transportation, and environmental planning implications for our region. It's essentially a land use strategy that is included in the 25-year regional transportation plan. It is, the responsibility for this effort is shared by ABAG and the Regional Transportation Agency. It This plan, both of the SCS and the Regional Transportation Plan are required to be internally consistent, and they will be adopted in early 2013 along with our RENA numbers. And as you may be aware, we're attempting this cycle to create a subregion for Napa County, and we will get a bulk number that we will allocate internally within the county if that goes all the way through. So there's some environmental goals as far as reducing greenhouse gas by 15% per capita by 2035. And the means that this is done is a land use planning that will optimize transit opportunities. And let's see here. It's structured to support a sustainable regional growth pattern by these policies and incentives that are provided in the SCS. The plan, the SCS is segmented into 3 categories, and this is the initial vision scenario. Next will come the detailed, and then at the end will be the final draft scenario. The initial vision scenario is intended to be the starting point for this discussion, and it is, I think it's very important to point out this last bullet that it's assuming unconstrained resources. That leads me to an introduction to the last part of that second presentation I have, which is what's really being asked here is after you view this presentation to respond or have a response to ABAG on the initial vision scenario. And the second portion of this presentation are suggested responses given our local setting here for RENA numbers and environmental planning, land use planning, transportation planning. A lot of these concepts that I'll be presenting in a little bit, I'll be speeding through because they don't really have any applicability to Yountville or, in most cases, Napa County. These terms, priority development areas and growth opportunity areas, they have these place types they've identified in the SCS. Most of these place types do not apply to anywhere in Napa County, and there are none in Yountville. There is a priority development area, PDA as they're called, down at the south portion around American Canyon that is identified as a mixed-use corridor place type. And that is the only place type we have in Napa County. This is what they're planning for, essentially this number right here. By 2035, an incremental increase of a little over 2 million people to the region, which means the 9 counties that comprise ABAG around the Bay. This is the housing distribution, and these are I know you're not going to be able to tell much from this map. There's a close-up of Napa County in the material that's map of Napa County in the material that was in your packet. These list all of the land use types. As you can see, we don't really have any. We have some priority conservation areas, 10 of them within the county. Napa County is identified as remaining the most rural of all of the 9 counties. Over 90%, I believe, of our land will remain in open space agriculture and these conservation areas. But region-wide, 70% of the growth will be in priority, or these PDAs, priority development areas and growth opportunity areas. And 97% of the growth will occur within the existing urban footprints, which are these little gray masses you see up and down the valley in our case, that really define the corporate limits of each jurisdiction. Housing distribution for Napa County, as you can see, is the lowest of all of them. Again, we're the most rural county and will remain that. It's 9% for Napa County growth rate over the 2010-2035 period. These are the place types, and here's where I'm going to move through these slides pretty quickly because none of these really apply to Yountville, and it's only down in American Canyon we have a PDA with a mixed-use corridor. City centers, suburban centers, mixed-use corridor. These, I'll highlight this, I guess, as the only one that applies to Napa County, encompass a mix of low and mid-rise buildings housing residential, commercial employment, and civic or cultural uses. We don't have any transit town centers. Again, 70% of the growth will occur in PDAs and the GOAs, and that is about 3% of the region's land. Greenfield, meaning otherwise outside of the urban areas, 97% of the growth will occur in the existing developed areas, and 3% will be beyond what we now consider the urban growth areas, or urban limit areas. Employment distribution, we do have a higher 27% comparative. It's kind of in the middle of the pack of the 9 counties. 27% increase over the 2010-2035 period. A lot of the strategy and the reason that a lot of those place types do not apply to Yountville or Napa County in general is they're attempting to concentrate growth along transit corridors. And we simply are considered a rural county and don't have much in the way of those types of corridors. You can see from this chart they're counting on increasing transit capacity. The dark blue bars are the year 25, in the initial vision scenario, 2035. They're counting on increasing over the current regional plans, which are the lighter gray. If we continued along the path of the current regional plans, we would see the lighter gray, and its initial vision scenario is much more aggressive use of transit. Road capacity is flat. They don't plan on building much in the way of roads. So what we have now and current regional plans is pretty much what we're going to end up with in the initial vision scenario. And this is a summary of those two concepts of road building, flat, transit is increasing. Greenhouse gas reductions, even under the initial vision scenario, will not meet the 15%. It'll reduce greenhouse gases by 12%. The Air Resources Board target under 375 is 15% reduction. So the summary, and this is what I'm presenting to you now is a Plan Bay area slideshow. So this is how they see it. The initial vision scenario does two things: creates more housing and more affordable housing, and brings more people into the region. And they talk about the good and bad of that as more people driving, increasing particulate emissions, and new residents maybe using transit more and other multimodal means of transportation. And these are some target results. The highlighted in the yellow star is the target under the Air Resources Board, and then the red is the lighter red is the current regional plan if we kept going just along the way we're going, and the other darker red is the initial vision scenario. And then the meeting some of these goals on the other end are, again, the current regional plan in the gray and the initial vision scenario in the black. And these are targets for particulate matter, greenhouse gas reduction, collisions from driving, time spent commuting, direct new non-agricultural development within urban footprint measured in housing units, reducing housing transportation costs as share of low-income household budgets, increasing gross regional product, reducing per-trip travel time for non-auto trips, increasing non-auto mode share, and reducing vehicle miles traveled per capita. These I'll get through quick. These are the stages I was talking about. The first stage we're in is initial vision scenario, next is the detail, and then the last is the final preferred scenario. These will occur on a schedule. They have adoption of the actually the detailed vision scenario will be occurring in spring right now. It'll be coming out later in the spring. The preferred will be released at the end of 2011. The draft RENA plan early 2012, and then this will all be discussed during 2012 and adopted in early 2013. So these are some of the conclusions. And one thing I ought to point out about this scenario is it's a pure planning exercise, or it seems to be. They talk about no constraints, or they assume no constraints, and as a result of that, we got a fairly, Yountville realized a fairly high, what I consider growth in households, the highest of all the Up Valley jurisdictions, 120 over the plan period, 31 for Calistoga and 93 for St. Helena. And I have pointed out to the Sabrina group that we, of those jurisdictions, are the most constrained as far as on a number of counts that I'll get into right now. Let's see. Through some of these, this is our zoning map, of course, and I need to refer to that. Just, of course, the lay of the land is we have, when you look at our city town limit line, and it's one and the same with our planning area, our sphere of influence, and our urban growth boundary. Of course, this is all under state jurisdiction, and we have no control over that. So focusing on the downtown part, or the rest of it, I suppose, commercial and residential areas are these zoning maps. For Napa County, acknowledging we remain the most rural of all 9 counties, due to Napa County's policies to conserve agricultural uses and protecting farmlands, watershed, open space, more than 90% of the unincorporated county falls within these designations. And then I mentioned the 10 priority conservation areas, which are old growth redwoods, watershed trails, and agricultural areas. I mentioned the one PDA down in American Canyon that's a mixed-use corridor. And then getting into some of the constraints to development in Yountville, environmental, political, and land use setting. This includes that we are rural, surrounded by agricultural land that comes under Measure P. We have limited transportation opportunities, and we have, in that our sphere is the same, we have no opportunity for annexation. If we had opportunity for annexation, our sphere of influence would be bigger. We would be pre-planning those areas, but it's the same as our town limit line. Our limited land supply, I think I have a slide that shows all of the vacant lots. The ones in this orange are residential lots, which comprise 47 parcels and approximately 56 potential units, depending on how many second units are built, and there were some assumptions made. This may be a little on the high side, but these are distributed through town, and 47 includes the lots out at the Knight subdivision, an entitled project that's platted, as well as the unbuilt 5 lots at Girardi Place. There are also a potential, and it's off the map here, down at the bottom is the Catholic Church site that's identified in our housing element. It's actually zoned mixed residential, and we have a range of potential housing units out there of 14 to 18. This gets very speculative. They've never really made any indication that they are interested in housing, but the stage is set for it to happen. There's some underdeveloped lots, primarily down at the end of Talent Lane, Mesa Court, some others scattered around town. Each has their own challenge. The ones down Talent Lane, access, for one, would be challenging because that's a private road and it's irregular in width, and that would be an issue. Again, that's totally speculative. That would be, there's no indication that the people, the residents, want to do anything other than what they're doing right now. We have 2 vacant commercial parcels, the one across from the French Laundry and the one just south of Ranch Market. Our population has actually been reduced from the 2000 census. The latest census number is we're now slightly under 3,000, where we were about 3,300 in the 2000 census. Housing units have increased slightly. We did see some units getting constructed in this period, this 10-year period. So as you can see from that vacant lands map, our land supply is extremely constrained. A lot of those identified residential sites previously had residences on them, and so they've just been vacant quite a while and are considered vacant now, although they would really be redeveloped parcels. Infrastructure, water and wastewater. Noted in the staff report, our water supply plan is calibrated to our build-out that's shown in the general plan. There's not a lot of excess there to accommodate additional growth, and that pretty much follows on the same with the wastewater treatment plant. This one thing that they did point out in the initial vision scenario that I was glad to see was that they don't, and when they're assigning RENA numbers, is preservation of community character. When you are given a bunch of housing numbers and your current land use planning does not accommodate them, and that's what the housing element is about, is to adjust your planning to accommodate those numbers or allow them to happen. It's the private sector that builds that housing, but you have to, the jurisdiction has to set the stage to allow that to happen. You can do things that are deteriorate the community character. You can increase heights, you can increase FAR, reduce parking requirements. But that really erodes the character of the community as it is now, as it's historically developed. And I think it's important to point out that measures like that would erode community character and change our community in a negative way. Our housing stock characteristics in town, we have a very large group quarters population up at the Veterans Home, 1/3 of our population. Also, a smaller group quarters at the Seventh-day Adventist Retirement Home. Second units are throughout town. These are not counted as part of our RENA credit. We could conceivably do a survey and see what the rents being charged are, and if they fall within the county median brackets for low and very low, and we could make a case for counting those units. The mobile home parks, we have about 320 mobile home units. Those are not counted either, although they're dedicated to senior, and we passed the Senior Housing Preservation Ordinance recently. So they're a form somewhat of affordable housing to seniors, but we get no credit for that. And the last is the affordable housing production that we have been successful over the last, say, 5 years. We've built 64 units, are built and entitled 64 units. The only two on here that Knight has not been completed yet. And Yountville Square will be, or excuse me, Hotel Yountville. They're, within the next couple of months, will be coming online, but technically are not. But we've done quite a good job of producing units, and it's important to push that point, because when you produce units, you have less ability in terms of land supply to build units, and they've got to reduce your allocation, or you just can't keep getting the numbers and actually consuming land, building units, but that's now not available to build further units. So this point has been made to the Sabrina Group, and I think they appreciate it and appreciate Yountville's situation. Affordable housing units, we have a total of 104. And actually, a lot of those have come in the rental category fairly recently, and these are much needed units. We previously had a lot of ownership units. That represents a little less than 10% of our total housing stock as affordable units. I don't think any other jurisdiction in the Valley, or maybe the Bay Area as far as that goes, could say the same. So, no. So what, on those points, and they're summarized in the staff report, I would request that I would prepare a response letter to the initial vision scenario explaining our local constraints and forward it to ABAG and under the mayor's signature.
So if I understand you correctly, you'd like council comments on the content of that letter, which, as of right now, is basically page 3 of your staff report.
Yes, and any additional comments you may have this evening.
And would you like to hear, in terms of emphasis, if there is something in particular the council agrees should be a high priority, or do you feel like you already understand what emphasis is required in certain areas?
If the council believes one group or one point should be emphasized stronger than others, or I can certainly take that to them.
Sure. Okay, great. So I'll try to craft this if I can, and if it fails, then we'll just open it up for general comments. But the council has been able to see the 7 points, and we've heard the report on the 7 points of constraint to the growth in particular. Is there anything that's not on this list that any council member would like to have added to the list? And then we'll worry about whether there's extra emphasis or a certain crafting of a message that we'd like to see from this content. Vice Mayor.
Well, I think that you somewhat touch on it. Your constraints to growth 5, which has to do with ABAG projections for Yountville, are flat for jobs and housing. And what I was noticing in here had to do with the fact that they showed a nearly 25% increase in the number of jobs in Yountville over the next 25 years, which to me sounded really high. And when I was thinking about, Yountville's got supposedly currently has 2,100 jobs. I mean, 1,000 of those or so are at the Veterans Home. So all the development and everything that's happened down here has only generated 1,000 jobs in total, how are we going to increase that by 50%? I wonder if that number is driving that higher household number. I mean, you consider the size of St. Helena, and we have more households that we're supposed to build versus, their much higher job base. I don't know how much it has to do with proximity. It seems like the transportation component has been becoming large, so you can tell the further you get away from things, the less houses, which makes sense. So I don't know if that's been adequately, if that's your intention for that Part 5, but I think that's one thing to potentially highlight is just sort of I don't know whether they get those numbers. Those are census or state or wherever it is, those jobs numbers, but you might just break it down logically and say, this just doesn't make sense. I mean, how are we going to get to that? How are we going to get to that point when we have 2 commercial properties available?
It plays right back into the constrained land supply for commercial.
And I think in that point, Bob, on that number 5, it may be that we really want to stress the jobs and your job growth either not being there or, we're built out. There's not going to be a whole lot more people to come into these jobs. Similar.
Can I ask a point of clarification, sorry, real quick? Do you feel like that there is any, I feel like at the last NCTPA meeting and what I read in the papers, there's this sort of, oh, this is great, everybody recognizes how many, we've got a lot less households and household growth in this one Bay Area plan, but this is not the housing plan itself, and we have arena numbers. Is there a belief that this is going to drive what Napa County is going to get on housing numbers? I mean, I feel like they're almost 2 separate exercises. And I don't know if there's too much excitement about those numbers or if that process really is intertwined now.
Well, part of the RENA numbers includes above market.
Sure.
It's the whole spectrum. And they even go down to extremely low now, all the way up to market units.
Okay.
So we'll receive a number in every category of an expectation. Well, it's more make this allow your planning to allow this to happen or adjust your planning is what we'll be told. And I have emphasized that point to the Sabrina group that I think we'll get more of a local look at our situation from the Sabrina group that's aware of who we are and what's going on in Yountville as opposed to HCD, who assigns the numbers from Sacramento.
So I guess my question really has to do with these total numbers that are in this initial vision scenario. Is there reason to believe that those are going to be the total numbers that are going to be allocated through the RENA process?
No,
or is this just a separate planning process?
This is a unconstrained assumption, as I said, and they emphasize it's a starting point for the conversation, and that's why we need to get a feedback loop going. Can't do these, this is not realistic to ABAG, and so they know early, and on the next detail scenario, we'll see what they give us. We may have to tell them at every step.
And to follow up the Vice Mayor's point, at the NCTPA meeting, jobs numbers were criticized and challenged further up Valley also because the point was made, and it was either Calistoga or St. Helena, one way or the other. Technically, a company was located within their city limits, but the jobs were not. But all the jobs were assigned to the business, so then all the numbers fell within the city limits. But if somebody had regional representatives or a distribution system that had people on, trucking or whatever it might be, Calistoga, St. Helena got all those numbers, even though those people weren't actually working within the city limits. So that may be an example of a skewing of those numbers. And
there's one other on that skewing issue that we're going to have to continue to dialogue and communicate with. Part of that number is also represents location geographically within proximity to the large job generation, in this case Napa, and we're viewed as closer, so it's more likely that people would live here, work in Napa, as opposed to up Valley. And part of ours, as Bob says, we're going to have to develop talking points, an action response, and be very consistent and deliberate all the way through the process. And I think the story, and it starts here, those 7 points that you're looking at. I mean, we have real constraints, and we've also, we've done something.
Yeah,
And
and-
that's what we're going to have to keep saying loud and clear, which is, find somebody else that's done 10%. We're not a city that has said no to affordable housing. But, we're pretty well built out. I mean, I used to say 13 parcels, and Bob's got me corrected. We're going to be down to single-digit parcels.
Well, the point I would like to add, I think, dovetails onto that, and yes, slightly less than 10% affordable housing by very strict definitions, but as Bob pointed out earlier, and I've always felt, very strongly that the housing up at the Veterans Home are 2 manufactured home parks in addition to the housing at the Seventh-day Adventist. We don't get any credit for that. I think that needs to be highlighted, and I would even go a little further by making a stronger point by counting those up and say, if you consider that, our 10% number might be 20%. You'd have to do the math, and we might even be, because we need to emphasize that. It's doesn't fit a strict definition, but in fact, those are affordable places to live for a major part of our community, without a doubt.
So Bob, I think what we're hearing is that we're certainly challenging the housing numbers and the job numbers as they are assigned and expected of this community. That would be some direction. And I think you stated here, but you're hearing a little bit more emphasis on that. Are there other points specifically that we'd like to add? I think this list is a pretty comprehensive list, but now I think we do want to try to provide a little bit of direction, like we've just heard from the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Dornbecker. Councilmember Hall?
I just would like to concur with Councilmember Moeller. I mean, to the extent that we can spoon feed this kind of information back, I mean, there's nothing more powerful than to say, although you've taken into consideration this 10% or slightly less than 10%, when you do the calculus of what we actually have as affordable housing, I mean, the number is X, and you can present that as we have here, but just make that a stronger statement. Lead the horse to the water, not to coin the phrase.
Yeah, no, I
The
agree.
recycled water.
Yes, the recycled water that we also have taken care of.
In math form.
I think, again, generally speaking, emphasizing getting credit for what we have done, and I think that's what the town manager was also just talking about. It's not just affordable housing, though. It's if we have, and I don't know that we have tangible greenhouse gas emission numbers at this point, or certainly recycled water effort. We're far above, I think, a lot of communities in those efforts. Don't penalize us for having a good number now, and now we're expected to get an even better number. We need to have some credit, I think, in there. I think that's what I'm generally hearing from folks is we've been doing the right thing for a period of time, and we should have some credit for that. And then just the reality of our condition. Like we say, we're not trying to shirk the responsibilities. We are physically constrained in certain cases.
I think we can certainly do that, and I want to prepare the council that for the next several years, this community is going to have to, both at the management staff level and the council elected level, we're going to have to participate, attend, and be vigilant in presenting, defending, and staying on point with our message. I'm just, this is not one of those efforts that we sort of want to, oops. I mean, this is going to take a fair amount of staff time and elected, we may say, we need you to sludge off with us to a meeting in Oakland. We're going to need, because a message delivered by an elected official to other elected officials is always more powerful than one delivered by staff. I'm just telling you that this is starting that motion.
I think one of the most compelling challenges that we're going to have is one of the very first bullet points you mentioned is there in the plan listed, meet the housing targets. And that's a very broad statement. It's made by the state and then by ABAG and MTC, trickled down to us, and it's all driven by the state wants more population, and they want more housing for that population, and you figure out, but you have to comply.
Well, as Bob said, that's where we have to start delivering some realism.
Right. Vice Mayor?
Well, I was thinking, and Steve, you just did a pretty good job of summarizing. one thing that I think that we need to be very cognizant of, and this is where I've been concerned a little bit about the initial reaction to this initial vision scenario, is it is the initial one, and it's not the final one. And I am sure that everybody in Napa Valley is very happy with what's come up and people recognizing that we're a rural county. But I do look through here and see that even the county as a whole has a much higher jobs growth percentage expected than it does housing percentage. And I think one thing we should not do, I don't want us to overplay our hand. We need to defend what happened here as well and reiterate the agricultural nature and congratulate ABAG for their brilliance and foresight of understanding that and making sure that it's not that just, hey, we got, you gave us 9 things. Because when I looked, one of the numbers, like, anybody driven through El Cerrito? They want their population household to double. Now, they could probably make the argument, well, we're built out and we're here in this urban area, and how are we going to do that? So I think that concern of what the next iteration and some very much more powerful jurisdictions with more weight are going to try to do with these numbers, I think we should make sure we protect the piece that they
There's also one another factor that's going to be entering into this that's hard for us to fully understand. There has been some acknowledgement that the impacts of the housing stock in terms of vacancy and, the number of foreclosures and various things like that there is going to have to be some regional consideration of the housing inventory in general. So we don't quite know what that looks like, and obviously that's not a big factor for us, but when you look at the Bay Area as a region, it is. Because, one of the first things is we got a lot of housing stock that's not necessarily being fully utilized. It's already built that need to get back put into, so what are we doing? So I do think you're right. We want to be at the table, playing, be attentive, and provide information to balance it.
I would just like to get us back on track here. We can debate housing numbers indefinitely. So if there's any additional feedback that any council would like to give Bob for now, let's focus on that now, because this is clearly going to be an ongoing conversation. But at this late hour, we have some other things that we really need to try to address unless we have some pointed comments. Is there anything else from council? Okay, great.
Along the lines of getting credit for what we have done, I think part of that is we produced in the very low, it's fairly evenly distributed of the more recent, and these are very hard to get. These are never, no one steps forward and says, I'm going to build some very low units, but we've been able to make that work. 22, low and moderate. So we've got affordable units that probably no one else is distributing them as we have been able to do.
Clearly, we're going to need to use percentages and not raw numbers to get that point across.
Right.
I think. Okay. Any other guidance from us needed tonight?
No, thank you.
Okay. You're going to write me a good letter, right?
I will.
All right. Thank you.
keep it simple.
Okay, thank you for bringing that back together. Let's move on to staff informational reports. Purely informational, purely for us to review.
I'm here to answer.
Any questions on the report related to proposed changes in the joint powers agreement? Parzak? No. Okay, we'll move right along to council meeting reports. Do we have specific meeting reports for folks? I'll save myself for last this time. Do we have a Napa River Watershed Information Center meeting report?
No, Mayor Dunbar, the the meeting that was scheduled for last week was postponed. We'll be meeting on May the 26th. So that's after the next week after the following council meeting.
All right, thank you. Let's see, what else do we have here? Well, I'll just ask if it's not listed. Were there any other meetings attended by council that you need to report in on?
Well, I was going to report on the
Councilmember Dornbecker, go for it.
League of California Cities North Bay Division meeting, which was attended by myself and Mayor Dunbar and Steve Rogers, Town Manager, and I have been asked and will participate on a nominating committee for nominations for a second Vice President for the North Bay Division meeting. And the meeting was held in Novato, and I guess it was pretty well attended. It seemed to me there weren't as many Marin people there as I thought, but Napa County was well represented, and so that's really all I have to say.
Good. I'll check that one off my list. Unless I see, well, just to that end also, we did have, it was a great pleasure to have the League of California Cities Executive Director, Chris McKenzie, was our keynote speaker, which was, he's not really available all that often, so that shows a little bit of what the regard he holds of the North Bay Division. He gave us primarily a budget update that's already out of date and was also pretty negative anyway, so there's no point in really going too far into that. If no other meetings, I'll jump to a few meetings that I have been attending. Just today, flood control meeting, the highlight of that meeting was we did take a walking tour of the construction site at Pearl and Main Streets, where they are installing an enormous culvert next to the river there, and they're basically replacing Pearl Street as we were looking at it. They were covering up the culvert and putting the street back in place so they could tear up another section of street. They are going to have some substantial delays and eventual closures on Main Street in the next couple months, so folks going downtown Napa may run into some detour signs. Napa County Transportation and Planning Agency meeting, the board did approve fee increases on the Vine bus system. They also, let's see, there was a master list of regional transportation plan projects that was kind of an initial, again, a planning exercise through the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, a 25-year plan and $1.2 billion worth of projects that basically all the cities in the town had to provide a wish list of maybe future projects. Very loose list right now, I think. And there was also a Napa Action Committee created to advise the board on local transportation projects. Also, I attended, as a member of the NCTPA, an Cultural and Performing Arts Ad Hoc Committee meeting where we're evaluating a potential new kind of hybrid organization that would merge the Arts Council and the Arts Commissions that currently are in place right now. One, a nonprofit, the Arts Council being a nonprofit, and the Arts Commission being an arm of the NCTPA. So those are my meeting reports. Are there any council comments? Councilmember Hall?
Only that the, well, is this other information at this point in time, or just comments?
Yes, it is.
Other information. And I don't know if Mayor Dunbar, you are going to present this as well, but on May the 19th is a Watershed Information Conservation Commission Symposium. Thank you for that, front and center. Mayor Dunbar will actually be, I believe, kicking off that event. And I just wanted to remind everyone to be there. It will be a fun day filled with watershed information.
It'll be
at the
flowing,
Yountville Community Center.
flowing? Yes.
Free flowing.
Free flowing. Recently back from some time off, Councilmember Muller, do you have any comments?
No, the Upper Waste Management will be meeting on Monday. So.
Very good. Councilmember Dornbecker.
I did notice that there's a focus meeting coming up, and I didn't make note of the date, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Barbecue on June 5th?
That's it. Thank you. Focus barbecue on June 5th.
Vice Mayor, anything to report?
If we have any Navy SEALs out there watching tonight, good job.
All right, I will just thank the Parks and Community Services team, Samantha, and all of your team for the Breakfast with the Bunny and the Easter egg hunt. It appeared We didn't have any disastrous fights over eggs. It all went smoothly. It looked like there were several hundred people out there. Yeah, it was perfect weather, and the grass, I'm sure, was cut immediately following, because I know that was driving the Public Works guys crazy to leave it unattended like that. There may be still some eggs out there, so watch out. But also, I did want to acknowledge, if you haven't already received it, you will any day now, the town newsletter that also highlights the fact that we do have a Parks and Rec summer guide available, if folks don't already have that. Community pool will be opening June 11th. And look for more information. Oh, the townwide yard sale is coming up on May 14th, Saturday the 14th. Also, I just wanted to acknowledge, I couldn't remember if this was acknowledged at the last meeting, and I didn't want it to go without the recognition for the California Transportation Foundation Award. I don't remember, Steve, if we brought this up, but the fact that we are one of 3 finalists for a state award for our bike and pedestrian path. So Graham and all the team, and it was quite a partnership with agencies, county, state, and local. So hopefully we'll bring home some hardware. That's June 15th up in Sacramento. We'll be going up there and see if we can be recognized on a statewide level. We already have been, but more formally.
And Mayor Dunbar, could I follow up on the Yountville townwide garage sale? The town of Yountville has issued a press release that there will not be waste pickup that following week on the 21st. So that press release has gone out. I know there was some comments earlier that we haven't announced that, but that, and I believe a Nixle response will likely go out as well. Is that correct, Steve? Thank you.
Thank you for restating that for folks that missed earlier and are tuning in at this late hour. Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to future agenda items. We see them there. With that, we'll move on to item 16, which is closed session. I believe we do have a closed session item tonight.
We do, Mr. Mayor, members of the town council. 2 items, public employee performance evaluation. No, that one, nope, not that one tonight. But we do have a brief report on the property under conference with real property negotiators, the property located 6610 Oak Leaf Court. And I do not expect us